Chapter 294. Luo Nan's mood was indescribable in a short dozen or so seconds. Tianxi spoke of matters that were closely related to his family, but the information, the names, and the concepts were all so unfamiliar. It was like he was in a dream. He strove to merge into it, but he was always lacking a bit. He could only do his utmost to memorize, afraid of missing a single word. He would completely dissipate when he woke up from the dream. He waited for Tianxi to stop talking, but he still wanted to continue. He subconsciously reached out and touched the protective glass between the viewing platform and the crystal pillar. He used the ice-cold sensation to make his mind a bit clearer, and he confirmed that Tianxi's words just now were not forgotten in the slightest. Perhaps his reaction was strange, but Tianxi was a bit puzzled. Junior Nan. Luo Nan really wanted to tell her, "Tell me a bit more," but the words changed when they reached his mouth. They graduated 20 years ago, right? Senior sister Tian actually knows about them? Tianxi's eyelids drooped slightly, and she revealed a gentle smile. After all, many years have passed. It would be a lie to say that I have a deep impression of them. But as long as I look up some information, many things will appear before my eyes. However, I've heard that when it comes to architectural philosophy and aesthetics, some old professors will always use gear as an example. Senior sister Qingwen's name has always resounded. Luo Nan forced a smile. Is that so? In comparison, I admire Senior Zhongheng more. After all, I study industrial design, and Senior Zhongheng's theoretical knowledge is a bit stronger. Many of his research conclusions aren't outdated even now, including some conceptual product designs. They can be used at any time, saving me quite a bit of effort. Tianxi had clearly studied the information diligently. She spoke without thinking, and there was evidence to support her words. But what made Luo Nan feel awkward was that the more she spoke like this, the more confused he became. He didn't even know how to respond. His hesitation caused a gap to appear in the atmosphere of a coherent conversation. This gave a certain person an opportunity. Sisi. The young doctor who had been observing from the back all this time walked over with quick steps. His movements were very urgent, and he rudely stood between Luo Nan and Tianxi, using his shoulder to block Luo Nan's line of sight. Sisi, you made it easy for me to find you. Luo Nan's brows furrowed. His fingers pressed against the protective glass. He had a bad feeling. He roughly understood why Tianxi could not wait to avoid this rather handsome young doctor. Such a temperament and behavior were a waste of his good looks. Even the elites of the 5 schools were so unreliable. Luo Nan's mood turned very bad. He didn't want to get involved in this melodramatic matter, but the vast majority of what Tianxi had said was what he urgently wanted to hear, what he wanted to memorize. Tianxi had said that she had looked up a lot of relevant information for her graduation project. How could it be only this little? There must be a lot more in her stomach, but after the rush, it wouldn't be easy to fill it up. Luo Nan stared ahead at the spine wrapped in a white coat. He took a deep breath, but he was unable to suppress his fidgety mood. President Zhu. Tianxi hugged the drawing folder and crossed her arms over her chest. She took half a step back. Her body language was very distant, and she didn't even pretend to speak. Based on her usual smooth style, this performance was about to reach her limit. Unfortunately, President Zhu didn't sense this at all. Or perhaps he did sense it, but he didn't care. His body leaned forward, once again closing the distance between him and Tianxi. He used the tone of a host to speak. Sisi, the party is about to officially begin. I solemnly invite you to pair up with me. Tianxi really couldn't take it anymore. She took another step back and stuck half of her body out. She extended her hand toward Luo Nan, forcefully diverting President Zhu's attention. Let me introduce you guys. This is President Zhu Maoxuan of the Cloud City Business School's Elite Society. This is my junior Luo Nan. Zhu Maoxuan was very dissatisfied with Tianxi's body language, and he didn't like Luo Nan at all. Well, he was already in a bad mood when he saw Luo Nan and Tianxi conversing and laughing 2 minutes ago. He had long since decided on a plan in his mind. Bullying juniors was no pressure for him. They were rookies after all. Rookies were meant to be bullied. Zhu Maoxuan was pondering over how to give the little boy in front of him, who had yet to shed his fetal hair, a deep impression. On the other side, Tianxi did something that made him fly into a rage. This petite, gentle and beautiful girl directly bypassed him to walk over to Luo Nan's side. She even hooked her arm around the little boy's. Apologies, President Zhu. I just promised Junior Nan that I would bring him along tonight. Junior Nan just arrived at the school not too long ago. This is his first time participating in this sort of activity. He's still scratching his head. Tianxi seemed to feel that the action of hooking her arm was a bit too intimate. She let go and patted Luonan on the shoulder. She was older than Luonan by 6 or 7 years, but she was a bit shorter in stature. Patting her like this was a bit humorous and pretentious. In this way, it had nothing to do with the feelings between a man and a woman. Tianxi's series of actions caused Zhu Maoshuan's expression to fluctuate between clear and dark. He was unable to fathom her relationship with Luonan. Naturally, he was quite angry in his heart after being refused by Tianxi. However, if this was really a senior sister looking after her junior brother, then he would forcefully interfere. Things would really get out of hand and he would lose a bit of face. Oh, hold on. He had observed Tianxi and Luonan from beginning to end from the moment they met. Since when did Luonan have a pleading expression? Mother *her. You're playing me for a fool. Zhu Maoshuan's temperament had always been tyrannical. He had the nickname of the butcher in the Cloud City School of Business. This time he had played the role of a doctor, which was an irony to this nickname. Today he had hesitated for a few minutes and pondered a few more steps. This was already because he saw that Tianxi had a superior that he couldn't afford to offend. Now that the flames of anger had rushed forth, he didn't care a fart. He suddenly took a step forward, gritting his teeth and laughing out of habit. The muscles on both sides of his handsome cheeks pulsed, instantly becoming fierce and malevolent. At the same time he grabbed the collar of Luonan's white coat. Zhu Maoshuan was nearly a head taller than Luonan. His arms and legs were longer. He reached out and the little rookie was stupefied. He didn't react at all. It would be far too eye-catching to grab Luonan by the collar and threaten him in a public place. Zhu Maoshuan was an experienced character in this field. Though he grabbed fiercely, he was actually just grabbing the corner of Luonan's collar. He shook and shook, exerting a bit of force, letting the inside of Luonan's collar rub against Luonan's neck. Junior brother Luo, right? To be able to dress the same way as you is also fate. Today we get to know each other. I will remember you well. Don't doubt me. My memory has always been quite good. I won't forget any face. Raise your head. Don't be like a girl. The vicious voice commanded Luonan to raise his head. At the same time he used an exceptionally vicious gaze to stab Luonan. Senior's teachings are enough for you to enjoy for 10 years. You can't even say thank you. The voice came to a sudden stop. Luonan raised his head and locked gazes with Zhu Maoshuan. He looked into Zhu Maoshuan's eyes. His eyes went from vicious to scattered, and then from scattered to vacant. All of these changes actually happened in an instant. Luonan gently removed Zhu Maoshuan's stiff hand. Zhu Maoshuan was like a soulless puppet. His joints were all rusted away. Luonan frowned and increased his strength, causing Zhu Maoshuan to stagger backward. Zhu Maoshuan instantly came back to his senses. It was as if he had touched a viper with his outstretched hand. He suddenly pulled it back and even struck his own chest, hammering him until he grunted. He woke up a bit and wanted to get angry again, but his heart trembled when he saw Luonan's gaze. He opened his mouth but he didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked away. Zhu Maoshuan walked far away and he became a bit more clear-headed. He turned his head wanting to come back, but he didn't have the courage. He could only extend his hand and point at Luonan. In the end he left hatefully. Tianxi, who stood to the side, looked like she was watching an absurd play. She was unable to discern any logic from the beginning to the end. It was as if the boorish and troublesome Zhu Maoshuan had been possessed. He inexplicably dispersed his ferocity and walked away with his tail between his legs. What did Luonan do during this time? Tianxi only came back to her senses after being stunned for a full 5 seconds. She hastily apologized to Luonan. I'm sorry, junior brother Luo. Just now I was. Senior sister is very popular. Luonan didn't wish for the topic to stray too far. He spoke a few polite words and then he didn't continue. He hoped that Tianxi would continue to talk about matters related to his mother. It would be fine even if she added, that person. However, Tianxi's mood was still affected by this matter. Her eyes drooped in a daze for a moment, and she looked at the trembling water within the crystal pillar. She suddenly sighed with emotion. The scenery of the crystal pillar looks like a dream from afar. But when you look at it too much, it's nothing more than this. Just like this person. He looks limitless on the surface but he's actually quite unbearable. Luonan didn't respond. He didn't hear the information he wanted to hear. He wasn't interested in Tianxi's situation or her state of mind. He just felt vexed in his heart. For the sake of calming his mood, he imitated Tianxi and looked at the ripples within the crystal pillar. Luonan's heart lantern of the eye's orifice had yet to reach the realm of small success over the past few days of cultivation, but his gaze had become much sharper. He saw that the swaying seawater had more or less returned to its original color when it approached the crystal pillar. However, it wasn't particularly clear. Fine impurities seeped within, undulating and floating. Upon closer inspection, the vast majority of the impurities were the shedding, fragmented body tissues, and excrement of sea creatures. Luonan's gaze extended into the distance, and he saw shoals of fish stirring within the deep waters. The beautiful colors of nature attracted the visiting tourists to take pictures. Very few people thought that the impurities in the water originated from this place. There was a considerable portion of the impurities inside, and it was left behind by a crude predator like the devil ray. It looked dirty and messy, but there was an old saying, "There are no fish when the water is too clear." There were also microorganisms, algae, and small fish and shrimp that surrounded the impurities in the marine ecosphere. These links formed one after another, connecting head to tail. They formed a tight and indispensable chain. If a link was missing and there was no competent human intervention, the consequences would never be too good. Luonan sighed when he thought of this. He faintly felt that this was quite similar to the difficult problem he was facing in his cultivation. However, his brain had long since been divided into two halves when he delved deeper into it. He was unable to think of anything, and his mood became even worse. He didn't want to beat around the bush in his vexation. He was prepared to go straight to the point and ask this senior sister to tell him everything she knew. Tianxi found a new connection point amidst her sorrow at this time. She suddenly turned her face around, and her delicate and charming face recovered its usual smile. Chapter 295. Tianxi pointed at the crystal pillar in front of her. She slowly said, "The core design concept of Ocean Sky Cloud City is to facilitate the close integration of the ocean system and the building system. Dynamics, data, ecology, and other elements are effectively connected. This is also an important part of Senior Sister Qingwen's coupling design." Luonan's gaze cut across the crystal pillar and the complex structure of the building. He used his mental senses to observe more specifically, but the more he did so, the more confused he became. He didn't know what to say next. The question he wanted to ask the most right now was, what is coupling design? Tianxi didn't understand Luonan's current predicament. Her smile grew more natural and intimate after she spoke. She clasped her hands together and made a praying gesture. "Junior brother Luo, may I be so bold as to ask if your family has any information left behind by the two seniors? I want to make a copy for reference. Of course, I will pay great attention to intellectual property." Luonan gaped. At this very moment, a bit of face was not worth mentioning in the face of his intense thirst. He turned to the side and stared at Tianxi. "Senior Sister Tian, my mother passed away early. She separated from my father a long time ago. There is practically no information about them at home." Tianxi went, "Ah, so it's like this. Sorry, I thought." Luonan interrupted her before she could finish speaking. He spoke urgently, "Senior sister, can you give me a copy of the information you collected? I really need it. I really do." Tianxi suddenly understood what Zhu Maoxuan was feeling when she was enveloped by Luonan's gaze. Luonan's eyes were a mess of color under the deep blue light, but there was an indescribable pressure that penetrated her. It was as if a layer of raging flames had burned through her eyes and heart. It made her want to close her eyes in haste, and her heartbeat sped up. Tianxi was a member of the Mutual Assistance Association. Her ability to express herself had always been her forte. But right now, her ability to express herself, which represented logic and reason, vanished like smoke in the blink of an eye as she faced Luonan's eyes. Instead, the emotions she had successfully suppressed all this time intertwined and tangled in her mind. She was a bit stupefied for a time. Only with great difficulty did a thought emerge. They really are alike. Sure enough, they are the same type of people. Luonan and that person's figures overlapped, bursting with sparks. Tianxi's mind trembled heavily. She unconsciously took a step back. "Senior Sister Tian?" Luonan didn't quite understand Tianxi's reaction. Wait a moment. Tianxi's condition finally recovered a bit, but her throat was still a bit tight and dry. She lowered her head, not daring to look Luonan in the eye. She was afraid that her soul would fly out of her body if she took another glance. She lowered her head and fiddled with her wristband. She closed her eyes, adjusted her breathing, and sorted out her emotions. 3 seconds later, she began to operate and brought up a series of data that she had saved in advance. "It was originally your parents' information. If junior brother wants it, it's just a matter of asking." Tianxi raised her head and forced a smile. I'll share the information I've stored in the cloud with you. Most of it comes from the Academy's electronic library, and some of it requires a certain level of authority. You might not have it now, but you should be able to access it in advance if you look for Department Head Xia. Luo Nan clasped his hands together and expressed his thanks over and over. Thank you, senior sister Tian. Thank you. Tianxi knew from this that Luo Nan wasn't able to see anything deeper. She let out a breath of relief, and her mind became a bit more lively. She pulled out a blueprint that Luo Nan was currently unable to see and set it into projection mode. Due to the large interference from the deep blue light in the vicinity of the crystal pillar, Tianxi took out a drawing clip and used it as a cover, allowing Luo Nan to clearly see the diagram displayed within. Even so, the area of clarity was relatively limited. Luo Nan unconsciously moved closer and stood shoulder to shoulder with Tianxi. They leaned their heads against each other as they watched earnestly. This is the tender that the designer of Cloud City Water Village submitted in the year 82. Look here. The company's technical consultant is none other than Professor Pan Wen. According to what she said, she originally wanted to lead a team in the bid to verify senior sister Qingwen's theory. Unfortunately, it wasn't particularly successful. She still holds this regret to this day. Tianxi fiddled with the AR image, causing the three-dimensional perspective of Ocean Sky Cloud City's initial design to display the complex and precise structure from every angle as much as possible. Professor Pan said that though Ocean Sky Cloud City merged with the ocean system, its craftsmanship was too heavy. It could only be used as a weight to be unconventional and unconventional. It wasn't successful in terms of construction theory. It was far inferior to gear, which was as if it was formed by nature. There were practically no traces of craftsmanship. Luo Nan listened with pride and sadness. His eyes looked at the perspective of Ocean Sky Cloud City, but his heart was thinking about gear. Tianxi could more or less understand his current mood. She thought for a bit and added some gossip she had heard through hearsay. I heard that Professor Pan specifically made a design for this. The wetlands of the Academy can be seen with the naked eye from the high-level observation deck of Ocean Sky Cloud City. This includes gear on the north shore. The two buildings, one high and one low, mutually reflect each other? Really? Tianxi hadn't even finished speaking when Luo Nan impatiently interrupted her. Tianxi didn't think he was being rude. She just said, Cloud City Water Village has a set of ring-shaped buildings. Aside from the main building, only Ocean Sky Cloud City just happens to face the Academy. There aren't any other high-level buildings blocking one's line of sight. The height and angle are all decent. There should be some basis to this. Luo Nan immediately asked, which floor is the high-level observation deck on? The 142nd floor. Junior wants to go see it? Luo Nan nodded. He didn't say a word as he walked straight to the nearest high-speed elevator. Tianxi thought for a bit and followed. Compared to Luo Nan's undistracted state of mind, her gaze shuttled back and forth among the stream of people on the floor, searching for the target in her heart. She didn't expect that she wouldn't be able to find her target. She saw Zhu Maoxuan, who had just left in a sorry state, walk over with large strides with a gloomy expression. There were a few people by his side who had similarly unkind expressions. It can't be to the extent of getting into a brawl at a party. Tianxi found it hard to imagine such a scene. She couldn't help but feel fear in her heart. She wanted to find the location of the security guards, but she unfortunately bumped into Zhu Maoxuan's line of sight in the distance. Her heart panicked. The muscles on Zhu Maoxuan's cheeks pulsed. He said something to the people by his side and his feet sped up. Ding! The bell rang. Luo Nan had already pressed the button to open the door of the high-speed elevator and stepped inside. Tianxi whispered, "Wait for me." She chased after him in 3 steps. Her drawing clip slid from her shoulder to her elbow, and it bumped into the edge of the elevator as it swayed. She gasped slightly, "Hurry, Zhu Maoxuan!" Just as she started speaking, a muffled rumble sounded from the floor. Tianxi shuddered, and the light in the corner of her eyes changed. She instinctively turned her head and saw a dark shadow facing the crystal pillar directly from the elevator door. The shadow pushed against the enormous waves of water and heavily smashed into the inner wall of the pillar. The violent impact instantly painted the crystal pillar with a layer of fine white lines. The transmitted sound waves shook people's hearts. It practically made people believe that this enormous crystal pillar would shatter on the spot under the impact. The one that created all of this was without a doubt the mutated Devil Ray. The participants who were observing the shoals of fish cried out in alarm practically in unison. Such a scene was even more frightening than the one just now. Moreover, the Devil Ray's behavior was much more berserk than before. It swam along the edge of the crystal wall, and its flat head smashed into the inner wall of the pillar over and over again. It was filled with restless emotions. Its body was enormous and its force of impact was tremendous. There were clearly 2 layers of protection between them, but no one actually dared to approach. They were afraid that this monster would break through the protective layer and swallow them whole. Tianxi instinctively covered her mouth, suppressing the cry of alarm back into her throat. The elevator door immediately closed. Luo Nan swept a few glances at the crystal pillar before lowering his gaze to look straight at his own toes. It was as if there was nothing else in this world that could arouse his interest. Zhu Maoxuan and the others walked over aggressively. They just so happened to walk to the edge of the Devil Ray's collision zone. They were given quite a fright. They involuntarily followed the crowd and stopped to watch. It was Zhu Maoxuan who saw the elevator door close from afar. He urged them with a few words and only then did the group of people catch up. But at this time the high-speed elevator had already gone up. Keep an eye on the floor. Zhu Maoxuan made up his mind. He was going to give the adulterous couple a good look in this building. He slapped the elevator button, summoning a parallel elevator. He cursed and swore, venting his emotions that were on the verge of exploding. Luckily the other high-speed elevator arrived quickly. Zhu Maoxuan glanced at the floor number and took the lead. He walked into the elevator and the others rushed in as well. It stopped at the 133rd and 142nd floors. What's on the 133rd floor? It looks like an office area. 142. The high-level observation deck. That's it. Zhu Maoxuan quickly set his target. He ground his teeth and closed the elevator door, isolating the cries of alarm and clamor from the floor. Just 2 seconds later, another strange sound reverberated back and forth in the relatively quiet space. It flooded into their ears. Kacha 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 kacha. The rhythm was monotonous and there was no change whatsoever. It was as if someone was fiddling with an old-fashioned pair of scissors back and forth. It didn't stop and it made one's heart fidgety. Who set this ringtone? This was the first thing Zhu Maoxuan thought of. His companions were all stupefied. Zhu Maoxuan finally discovered that there was an unfamiliar fellow who had boarded the elevator with them. Perhaps he had been in the elevator earlier. He had been wholeheartedly focused on surrounding the adulterous couple, but he hadn't discovered them. It was a public place after all. The man wore a pure black suit and sunglasses. His clothes were ramrod straight, and he looked like a bodyguard or a security agent from a TV program. He would be quite recognizable if he were to be displayed at a party. However, the most eye-catching thing was the necktie worn by the sunglasses man. It was garish, but upon careful inspection, one would see that there were all sorts of beetles engraved on it. Perhaps it was because the necktie was tinted, but under the illumination of the light, a faint metallic luster seeped through it. The beetle's compound eyes flashed with light, brimming with a treacherous and unconventional color. The sunglasses man felt Zhu Maoxuan's gaze, and he slightly tilted his head. His eyes seemed to have shifted over. Zhu Maoxuan foolishly looked over and locked gazes with this eccentric fellow. The latter cracked open his mouth and faintly smiled, revealing a mouthful of pitch-black teeth that were branded with dazzling 5-colored patterns. Ding! The elevator door opened and Zhu Maoxuan and his party walked out. The elevator door immediately closed. The group of people at the elevator door looked around in a daze. Where are those two? 124. They're not on this floor. Then why did they come down? Because. Chapter 296. Luo Nan's elevator stopped at the 133rd floor. Everyone else went down, leaving only Luo Nan and Tianxi. The number of floors rapidly jumped up. It looked like the elevator was going to be silent all the way until he suddenly spoke. What kind of person is Professor Pan? Half of Tianxi's mind was still hooked by the berserk devil ray, and some of it was on Zhu Maoxuan's side. She was stupefied for a few seconds upon hearing Luo Nan's words. Only when the elevator stopped and the metal door opened did she wake up from her reverie. She was about to speak, but Luo Nan had already stepped out of the door. She could only hurry to keep up. She was completely brought along by his rhythm, like a secretary accepting an inquiry from her boss. Tianxi suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and responded, Professor Pan Wen is a first-rate design theorist in the world. At least half of the reputation of our design institute is supported by her. Tianxi knew very well what Luo Nan was truly concerned about. She paused for a moment before continuing, Senior Sister Qingwen was personally taught by Professor Pan when she was at the Design Institute. I asked a few of my senior brothers and sisters who stayed at the school. They all said that Professor Pan loved senior sister Qingwen like a daughter back in the day. She's a very amiable old lady, even if she doesn't care about academics. She will certainly be very happy if you pay a visit. Luonan said solemnly, I will certainly pay a visit. That's fine. I can help you introduce her. Luonan didn't care how many thoughts were contained within Tianxi's words. He seriously memorized Professor Pan Wen's contact information. The two passed through the walkway and entered the open-air viewing platform. They were already 700 meters in height. The buildings in the Pingjiang district were generally short. Aside from the main building of Cloud City, there was a vast expanse as far as the eye could see. Tianxi said that they could see the wetlands and jungles of the school from here. Dusk had arrived and the weather had turned cold. Strong winds howled from high up in the sky, causing the protective glass at the edge of the platform to buzz. There was also the sound of water beneath the sound of the wind. The peak of the central crystal pillar is the 142nd floor. Tianxi pointed at the raised frame structure in the center of the platform. The frame was both a support and a separation. A vast body of water with a diameter of nearly 50 meters was cut out. This body of water rose to a height of approximately 2 meters, and it was surrounded by protective glass. This is the rather famous Heavenly Ocean Lake. It looks like a part of the crystal pillar, but the two are actually separate. The bottom of the lake is separated by reinforced glass. So it's just a swimming pool. It's just a gimmick that the operator modified. The two needed to pass by the edge of the frame structure of the Heavenly Ocean Lake. Luonan only shot a glance at this gimmick. He wasn't interested. The current time was just before most of the salaried workers got off work. The sky was getting dark and there weren't many people on the viewing platform, making it seem a little deserted. Luonan identified his direction a bit and walked to the edge of the viewing platform. He cast his gaze in the direction of the academy. He did see the wetland forest of the academy, and the outline was still clear. There was also the long river that passed through the forest, winding in and out, reflecting the light of the setting sun, appearing and disappearing at times. Luonan was able to determine the specific location of gear by relying on the silhouette of the forest and the river. But now the sky was gradually darkening. Separated by a distance of more than 10 kilometers, that single building was really like a small component, lost in the shadows of the boundless jungle, difficult to find. Luonan still wanted to give it a try. He believed that Tianxi wouldn't lie about this matter. He wanted to use his spiritual sense, but in this situation, his spiritual clairvoyance, which had always been successful, didn't seem to be as far as his vision. It's too late. My field of view is limited. But there are viewing mirrors here. I should be able to see. Tianxi pointed to a row of high-powered viewing binoculars at the edge. These were specially prepared for tourists, and there were only 2 or 3 people using them right now. Luonan didn't say a word. He walked forward, moved his head to take a look, and then stood up straight. Tianxi carefully observed, "Is it not okay?" Luonan shook his head. The oppressive world he saw through the limited field of view through the binoculars was absolutely not the feeling he needed. He stood stupidly at the edge of the viewing platform for 7 or 8 seconds. Then he suddenly spoke without any warning, "Coupling design. What in the world is this?" He had a general understanding of the definition of coupling. It referred to the interaction and linkage phenomenon between various systems. But what did it specifically refer to in his mother's architectural theory? Tianxi had to answer this question. She grew all the more cautious and cautious. She thought over and over before saying, "The Design Institute has a relatively unified view. It is a new interpretation of the classical Eastern philosophy of man and nature are one. And the practical train of thought is in the same vein as green buildings that borrow solar energy, water energy, wind energy, and other natural energy sources." Luonan furrowed his brows. Tianxi immediately increased her tone, "But from what I can see, Senior Sister Qingwen's core idea should be that she hopes to use the orderly architectural layout created by humans to carry out an effective influence on the grand natural system. And the level involved in this influence method is incomparable to green buildings in the traditional sense. Professor Pan has an evaluation of this called the Eye of Heaven and Earth. It's a mystery within a mystery." Tianxi spoke very vaguely. She was far from researching coupling design theory thoroughly. She just picked out a nice evaluation from her predecessors to appease Luonan. Luonan was well aware of this. He pursed his lips and didn't respond. He had a rough idea, but he wasn't sure. He didn't want to say it to Tianxi. It was this feeling that seemed clear but wasn't clear that stimulated Luonan's heart. It made him impatient to tear down the bewildering barrier. No matter what the answer was, It possessed incomparable value from his perspective. He took another step forward. The tip of his nose pressed against the protective glass wall of the viewing platform. He strove to look into the distance. Unfortunately, this step was meaningless when compared to the distance of a dozen kilometers. What he saw before his eyes was still only a rough outline. There was still no trace of the element belonging to gear. His field of vision had already expanded to its limits, but the precision of his resolution was still a bit lacking. As for the mental plane, he was barely able to probe forward in the void. He was still far from it. In this way, his gaze could see, his mental senses could be sensed. 2 domains, 2 planes. He was unable to find a precise target. He was tangled up quite fiercely and his mind was in chaos. Luonan knocked his forehead against the glass. He wanted to calm his emotions. Then his wristband received a call at this time. It continued to vibrate. He wanted to turn it off, but he glanced at it before he could do so. The name that entered his eyes stunned him. Zhang Yingying. Luonan had nearly forgotten that he still had the number of a fellow member of the society in his hands. It had been a long time since he last contacted this person. It was said that Zhang Yingying had gone into seclusion. She had hopes of advancing her white rainbow to the next level. It must be said that Luonan really wasn't in the mood to deal with Zhang Yingying right now. However, Zhang Yingying had specifically changed channels to contact him during the maintenance of the psychic wave network. He feared that something had happened. In the end, he still connected. He was just about to open his mouth to greet her when the other side gave him a barrage of words. Where are you? Are you at school? Luonan was stupefied for a moment before he responded. Something the matter? I'm not at school. I'm at Cloud City Water Village. You're not there? Excellent. Wait a minute. Cloud City Water Village isn't that far away. Zhang Yingying's voice rose in pitch. She immediately asked, what about Shuelei? Is Shuelei with you? Though the distance was a bit far, it still counted. Luonan gave a vague response. Zhang Yingying clearly let out a sigh of relief. What kind of mode did you set up? The secretary asked me for your number, but she couldn't get through. In the end, she even asked me to tell her. When will you let people be a bit less worried? Luonan sweated a bit. He had listened to He Yuan's advice to concentrate on cultivation and had modified the settings of the hexayear. He had also conveniently set the wristband's communication to restricted mode. He only allowed contacts who had already been recorded to enter. He never thought that a problem would crop up. Zhang Yingying grumbled a few words and her tone deliberately turned serious. Listen carefully. I'm just passing on the secretary's words. What's wrong? Trouble's coming. I don't know what the investigation team from headquarters heard, or maybe someone misled them. Right now, they are completely convinced that you are a key figure in the Frost River reality incident and that you know a few secrets. They want to dig out information from you and summon you for interrogation. Interrogation? They want to interrogate me? Luonan's mood was originally very anxious. He couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. What kind of play was this? It's the usual style of headquarters bureaucrats. There's nothing strange about it. Zhang Yingying's words were filled with disdain. She immediately snorted and said, of course President Ouyang refuted this unreasonable request. But this group of people won't give up. They used the high-level privileges in their hands to create a malfunction, forcing the psychic wave network to disconnect for maintenance. President Ouyang just let them mess around? Shut up and listen to me. Time difference. Do you understand time difference? You're a rookie who hasn't even passed basic training. You probably won't even know what's going on when you encounter those guys who are proficient in torture and interrogation. Then you'll pour out everything in your belly. Luonan asked curiously, hold on. You're saying that they've already come to find me? At school? Nonsense. Otherwise, why would we have called you in such a hurry? Right now headquarters has already sent people out. There might be reinforcements here in Xia City as well. For this group of people, as long as they don't take your little life, then even if their methods are too extreme and produce some minor repercussions, President Ouyang and our boss won't be able to kill them. Naturally, they'll be unscrupulous. Zhang Yingying spoke faster and faster. On the contrary, as long as you're under the protection of the branch, they won't dare to act forcefully in order to avoid things getting out of hand. Right now the psychic wave network is disconnected, and the branch is in a complete mess. We don't know who can rush over to help you first. Luckily Shuelei is here. That fellow's abilities are worth trusting. How about this? Find a place with a lot of people and stay with Shuelei. Don't move. It doesn't matter who is looking for you. As long as the secretary doesn't personally confirm it, you absolutely won't go with them. If they really want to play forcefully, then let Shuelei deal a killing blow. You'll be fine after holding on for half an hour at most. What about Shuelei? Let him respond. I'll make some arrangements. He's on the phone over there. Luonan. Chapter 297. From Luonan's impression, this was the first time Zhang Yingying's anger had reached its peak. He was used to her laughing and joking, completely improper appearance. Her sudden outburst was quite impactful. Luonan did not blame Zhang Yingying for her mood. He had received training from this society. Whenever he chatted with Bamboo Pole, Papercut, and the others, he would never hear anything good about headquarters. Luonan was very curious about this. How could such an organization retain people? Papercut's answer was resources, strength, and fewer restrictions. But he also admitted that all these benefits were as fragile as bubbles when serious conflicts of interest were involved. Bamboo Pole's answer was much more artistic. Not all cities are like Xia City. The environment of Xia City was indeed very good, but it was not a paradise that transcended the world. It was hard to avoid being affected. Recently, the investigation team of headquarters was the kind of trash that wasn't welcomed by chickens and dogs in Xia City. What was truly strange was that the Xia City branch handled things coldly and secretly guarded against them. How did they get the chance to come out and discuss people? Luonan was not prepared to bicker with Zhang Yingying. His thoughts spun as he unleashed his own special response. He did not give Shuelei another call. Instead, he directly unleashed his mental senses. He was on the viewing platform and the location of the party was on the 88th floor. There was a drop of over 50 floors. The straight-line distance between the two was no more than 200 or 300 meters. It was all within the range of his mental senses. Luonan easily found Shuelei on the floor where the party was located. He gave him a subtle mental jolt, and Shuelei's martial habits immediately alerted him. Next was communication on the mental plane. Since the communication was one way, and Shuelei was not used to this method, Luonan did not go into too many details. But Shuelei was very clear about the seriousness of the situation. He immediately informed Xiao Xinyu and hung up after a few words. He rushed upstairs. Zhang Yingying slapped her thigh when Luonan did not immediately respond. Did you understand what I said or not? I've already notified Shuelei. He's coming upstairs right now. You can call him. Zhang Yingying was stupefied. She instantly collected her meaningless emotions and asked, how many floors off? Forget it. I'll ask him. Also, your mental senses have been opened, right? It's 80 meters in diameter. That should be enough. Remember, this is a matter of life and death. No matter what, you have to hold on and keep searching for suspicious targets. Don't hang up the phone. I turned on my communicator. Luonan grunted. He listened to the quick conversation between Zhang Yingying and Shuelei. His mental senses silently covered a wide range of a kilometer. The magnificent scene of the Milky Way unfolded in his mind. Starting from the underground space of Ocean Sky Cloud City, there were nearly 170 floors. The life sketches of tens of thousands of creatures lit up layer by layer. Stars filled the sky, dense and numerous. Actually, Luonan could ignore the vast majority of these areas. He just needed to search for the areas that his mental senses were unable to penetrate. The speed at which the answer appeared exceeded his expectations. It was the high-speed elevator that he had taken before. The elevator next to it was shrouded in a gloomy, dark fog, and a few stars were faintly discernible. At this time, the suspicious elevator had already reached the 130th floor, which was the office area of a multinational corporation. Someone had pressed the button to open the elevator. It had paused for a while, but it would soon resume its upward state. Luonan let out a breath. Not too good. Zhang Yingying immediately replied, what happened? There are indeed people coming up, but their strength is unknown. Avoid them. Utilize the advantage of your senses. Don't come face to face with them. If they have sensing abilities and you really can't avoid them, then enter the crowd. Don't give those fellows the chance to make a move. Luonan looked around the viewing platform, his lips silently grinning. Right now, there were very few figures on the platform. The so-called crowd certainly didn't exist. Even if it did, he wasn't willing to use innocent people as shields. Finally, he cast his gaze towards the increasingly dusky sky. It would be hard for him to unearth a new secretive gear today no matter what. Speaking of which, he seemed to lack a kind of intuition, inherited from his bloodline. This son of his was unqualified. Wasn't that right? This unreasonable thought caused the emotions in his heart to tumble a few more times. He smacked the protective glass heavily, and this action startled Tianxi. Junior? Luonan didn't have the mood to give her an explanation right now. He simply said, "Let's go." Tianxi was stunned. Luonan's current behavior and attitude were extremely odd, but she was smart and didn't plan on saying much. She just gave a soft grunt of agreement, taking on a submissive attitude that said, "I'll let you decide." Zhang Yingying was quite baffled as well. "You're still leading someone? Who is it?" Luonan didn't respond. He led Tianxi toward the elevator area with large strides. Given the speed of the elevator, he could still avoid the unidentified fellow. But halfway there, a new element appeared within the range of his mental senses. Luonan's footsteps suddenly stopped. His mental senses were focused on the crystal pillar. This enormous pillar had a diameter of 120 meters. Tens of thousands of marine life were placed within it, but 99% of them were muddle-headed. Their life sketches were also scattered. He could just ignore them. There was only a single devil ray. Because it was a mutant, it had a powerful aura, and it didn't know how to conceal itself. Most of its life sketches were exposed outside the nebula. It was extremely eye-catching and outshone others. And because of this, Luonan suddenly discovered that this big fellow had left the mid-deep water region that it liked to stay in. It went all the way up, its speed much faster than a high-speed elevator. In the beginning, the location of the devil ray was around 30 floors lower than the elevator that hid the suspicious person. But as Luonan used his mental clairvoyance, the devil ray's height skyrocketed. It broke through the 130th floor barrier in the blink of an eye, and its speed didn't decrease in the slightest. What made Luonan even more vigilant was that there was a much more obscure dark mist next to this big fellow. It was hidden extremely well. If it weren't for the fact that Luonan was affected by the bright life sketches of the devil ray on the mental plane, Luonan would have overlooked it. This wasn't some marine product. It was a living person. There was nothing to worry about. Luonan immediately changed directions and asked urgently, "Are there any elevators that don't go through Heavenly Ocean Lake?" There were 60 high-speed elevators on the upper floors of Ocean Sky Cloud City. The structure was complex, and Luonan's nebula image wasn't particularly good at dealing with inanimate objects. He could only treat a dead horse as a living horse and ask, "There are." Tianxi's response was admirable. She had done her homework earlier. She immediately pointed to the west side of the viewing platform. "There's a row over there. Walk faster. We'll split up when we get there." Tianxi was practically jogging under Luonan's urging. She was a bit out of breath. "Is Zhu Maoshuan and the others coming up?" "I'm sorry. It's none of your business." Luonan made Tianxi shut her mouth. "You're still acting all high and mighty. If you're in the mood, why don't you take a few more steps?" Zhang Yingying urged Luonan from the other side of the communicator. She was mocking Luonan, but she was actually stomping her feet in anger. "If you don't have the ability, then don't pretend. Shuelei, hurry up." Shuelei's urgent voice rang out. "I'll go from the outside." Luonan corrected his position and updated the information. "Go to the west side of the building. I'll report the floor at any time. One of them is in the Central District elevator. The other one is in the Crystal Pillar." Luonan took out a thumb-sized metal bottle from his pocket as he spoke. He unscrewed the cap with one hand, shook it, and then simply tossed it away. The bottle landed on the ground. It sounded like it was empty. Tianxi couldn't understand what Luonan was doing, but her entire body was stung with cold sweat from his words, which were filled with the smell of danger. In the end, she was a smart person. She cherished her life. She didn't say anything, but she secretly turned on the communication function of her wristband. She hesitated for half a second between calling the police and notifying that person, before choosing the latter. However, there was no response from the communication device. Tianxi's mind went blank for a moment. She didn't look where she was going during this moment of absent-mindedness, and her high heels slipped down the stairs. She immediately stumbled, but Luonan supported her. Luonan extended a helping hand, but his feet didn't stop at all. He half-dragged Tianxi forward. Under such circumstances, even though he didn't say a word, the pressing sense of crisis was like a thundercloud wrapped in lightning. It pressed down heavily, frightening one's soul. Tianxi's face was pale. She didn't say a word. She walked 7 or 8 steps in a daze before breaking away from Luonan's support. Her hand clutched the painting clip tightly, and her knuckles turned pale. The two walked into the elevator area on the west side. Coincidentally, an elevator arrived before Luonan even pressed the button. The bell rang and the metal door opened. Tianxi's mind was numb right now. She followed her instincts to move forward, but she was suddenly pulled by Luonan. She immediately lost her balance and her petite figure fell backward. She bumped into Luonan's shoulder and she was pushed back. She let out a low cry, and the painting clip in her hand slid to the ground. The two people retreated at the same time, stepped on it one after the other. Not only was it dirty, it even cracked from being stepped on. But Tianxi couldn't care about these details right now. A figure slowly walked out from behind the opened elevator door. He wore a security uniform and he held a police baton in his hand. The electric current switch was already turned on and it sizzled. This new type of police baton had the effect of an electric whip. Sparks could be seen flickering. The leaping arcs of electricity possessed an absolute deterrent force from Tianxi's perspective. Since he was a security personnel, why didn't he call for help? It was because this person's face was a strange appearance that made one's blood run cold. Dilated pupils, stiff flesh, and flowing snot and tears. Everything presented was filled with fear. The corner of his mouth split open, twitching upwards. Just looking at this part of his face made it seem like he was grinning in laughter. His face was forcefully inserted with completely opposite emotions. From Tianxi's perspective, this scene was even more terrifying than the scene of the devil ray charging into the crystal pillar. At the very least, that electric baton was real. He's crazy, Tianxi moaned. The crazy security guard's throat emitted a strange ho-ho sound just as Tianxi's voice fell. He exerted force with his feet, brandishing the electric baton as he charged over. Tianxi let out a short cry of alarm, and her body shrunk behind Luonan. Just as she hid in the shadows behind Luonan's back, the muffled sound of a heavy object smashing into something rang out. There was also the sound of something rolling. Luonan's figure stood steadily without moving, and he continued to cover the space in front of him. Tianxi breathed in with great effort to restore her calm. She vaguely heard Luonan say something in a low voice. Chapter 298. Tianxi didn't understand what Luonan said at all. She just saw the crazy security guard fall face first to the ground. The baton slipped from his hand and slid all the way to their feet. She instinctively wanted to pick it up and use it to defend herself, but Luonan kicked the baton away the moment she bent down. Don't delay. Take this elevator and leave first. Luonan urged Tianxi to move faster. Tianxi hesitated for a moment before walking out from behind Luonan. She walked toward the elevator when another ding rang out. A second elevator had arrived. Its location was right next to the previous elevator. Tianxi took a step forward and was half a step ahead of Luonan. She raised her head and saw the same scene from before. Two security guards with the same expression came out of the elevator. One of them was even carrying a riot gun. Tianxi's vermilion lips parted when she saw the pitch-black muzzle of the gun, but her throat was choked with fear. She was unable to make a sound. She no longer had the chance to hide this time. But it was also because of this that her pupils dilated from fear, clearly reflected the entire process of the two crazy security guards' eyes rolling white as they silently fell to the ground. There were no sound or light effects during the entire process. It was like a pantomime. The people on the viewing platform outside didn't notice anything. But the more it was like this, the more bizarre and mysterious elements seeped into the bottom of her heart. Tianxi subconsciously covered her mouth. Her ice-cold palms felt a bit of warmth from the breath, allowing her to confirm that she was still in the real world. But why? Why did she get involved in a conflict of this level? Luonan didn't have the leisure to ponder over a girl's mind. He saw that Tianxi couldn't move her legs, so he gave her a light push. Hurry up. Tianxi bit her lips and took 2 steps forward. However, at this moment, the faint sound of motors suddenly stopped, and the display screens of the entire row of elevators on this side had all turned off. The power was cut off, and the metal doors automatically closed, isolating Tianxi outside. Whether it was Tianxi or Luonan, they were both stunned for a moment. Half a second later, Luonan grinned. It was hard to tell if he was smiling or not. The other side doesn't fight a battle unprepared. A muffled vibration came over just as Luonan finished speaking. The two trembled slightly beneath their feet. An earthquake. Tianxi's first thought was an earthquake that had persisted for over a month. But the second wave of vibration came right after. There was also the sound of crashing water. It clearly came from the direction of Heavenly Ocean Lake. The few tourists on the viewing platform were all extremely shocked. Some stuck their heads in the direction of the swimming pool, while others directly walked over. Tianxi looked over as well, but Luonan pulled her away. Go to the fire escape passageway. Luonan no longer paid attention to the defunct elevator. He quickly confirmed the location and walked a few steps quickly. He rushed ahead of the confused Tianxi, wanting her to keep up. In a trance, Tianxi took a few steps forward and stepped over the body of the crazy security guard. This time she didn't trip. Instead, she was more stimulated. When things reach an extreme, they move in the opposite direction. Her mind became much clearer. Remembering something, she stopped and bent down to pick up the anti-riot gun on the ground. Tian said. A foot swept over and brushed past Tianxi's fingertips, sending the anti-riot gun flying several meters away. Tianxi's heart instantly spasmed. All her complex and chaotic emotions were squeezed to the point of exploding in this moment. She suddenly stood up straight and she did not know where the courage came from. She rushed at Luonan and shouted. She unconsciously lowered her voice, "You have to use a weapon to defend yourself." "Guard down," said Tian. Nan. Tian, for what reason? I just took a course. Non-combatants can't possess weapons of mass destruction in similar situations. Otherwise, I might be the first to suffer. Tianxi knew that she couldn't get angry, but she couldn't stand having her dignity trampled on. She raised her voice. "I've gone through military training. I won't hurt you by accident. Or are you worried that I'll shoot you in the back?" "Yes, they will when the other party has some sort of controlling ability." Luonan raised his wrist slightly after speaking. He asked through his communication wristband, "It can control ordinary people. The controlled person's movements are unhindered, and their emotions are strange. What sort of ability is this?" Zhang Yingying responded in the first instance. She pointed directly at the owner of this ability. "It's Puppeteer. He's a member of the investigation team. He's proficient in high-level hypnosis. His ability is to control life forms with complex emotions. Aside from humans, he can also control wild beasts or mutants with high intelligence, as long as he doesn't suffer a backlash. We can now determine who's in the crystal pillar." Zhang Yingying snorted coldly. "Stay away from that stupid woman if you want to live. You should have parted ways from the beginning." Luonan indicated for Tianxi to keep up. He laughed. "The other party has made ample preparations. I might not be able to deal with the hostage situation. I might as well keep her by my side and be at ease." "You're going to ignore her?" "Who knows? Why take the risk and try?" Zhang Yingying choked. She said resentfully, "I'm just afraid that you won't be able to protect her. You'll be threatened all the same." "Then it's a matter of ability." Luonan used his mental senses to lock onto the two threatening targets while he cautiously observed the situation all around him. At the same time, he spoke with Zhang Yingying and split some of his energy to keep an eye on Tianxi. Multiple operations and multiple people taking care of each other. This was a bitter task for anyone. However, Luonan dealt with it in an orderly and logical manner. He wasn't messed up at all. In fact, Luonan's mind had become much clearer after these 10 days of training. Yuan, bamboo pole, paper cut, and the others had imperceptibly clarified many common-sense standards for him. When he encountered a situation and needed to make a judgment, he already had a set of rules about what elements he needed to consider and what he could overlook. Also, the cultivation of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice had allowed his reaction and coordination abilities to advance by leaps and bounds, even though he had yet to reach in-progress results. No matter what situation he faced, he would always be much calmer than before. He even split some of his mental energy. "Leister, be a bit steady. Don't charge too fiercely." "No problem. I'm around the 110th floor. I'll be there soon." Shui Lei's breathing was steady, but his mood was clearly a bit tense. Luonan comforted him. "It's okay. I've already taken down 3 of them. Puppeteer's move is useless against me." He arrived in front of the fire escape passageway as he spoke. He was just about to push the door open when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered, and he immediately retracted his arm. He was just a hair away from stabbing his finger with the dark green beetle's pincers on the door handle. The sharp edge of the pincers was serrated, and there was a layer of green and lustrous light. The result of stabbing him would probably not be good. The attack missed and the beetle, which was the size of a fist, buzzed. It spread its wings and flew into the air, smashing down to cover Luonan's face. Tianxi cried out in alarm. Luonan's other hand grabbed the loose-leaf notebook, and he swung it like a fly swatter. The dark green beetle leaped up to avoid Luonan's attack, and then it pounced down. It displayed inconceivable agility. Luonan saw that the force of his attack was exhausted, and he was no longer able to block it. A thin piece of paper floated out from between the pages of the notebook in Luonan's hand. It lay horizontally in the path of the beetle's attack. It transformed out of thin air, contracting like a spring, and then it burst open to reveal a small and exquisite figure. It flew high into the air and kicked the beetle far away. The small and exquisite figure landed on Luo Nan's shoulder. It was actually a small paper man the size of a palm. It had all 4 limbs and its face was muddle-headed. Its body was only a thin layer, but it just so happened to adopt a fist stance. It was extremely intelligent amidst its strangeness. The chain of changes could be said to be like a falcon descending from a hare. Tianxi's cry of alarm had only just begun. Things were far from over. Not only did the beetle that was sent flying waver a few times, but it pounced over again. 7 or 8 beetles flew out from the crack in the door of the fire escape passageway. It was as if they were carved from the same mold. They buzzed with the sound of flapping wings, and they pounced over in unison. They were a dense mass of darkness, and it made one's scalp go numb. Luo Nan's figure hastily retreated, and he even pulled Tianxi along with him. The small paper man on his shoulder soared into the air even earlier. It was like a valiant boxing master. It faced the enemy head-on without the slightest fear. It punched and kicked, and each strike was heavy. It sent 3 flying in a row, stopping the momentum of the beetle's attack. But no matter how valiant and tenacious the small paper man was, it was still outnumbered when faced with the beetle swarm. Its figure was not inferior to the beetle swarm, and it didn't possess the ability to fly. It had no choice but to borrow strength from the beetles. It was greatly restricted, and soon it was in dire straits. One of its arms was torn off, and it floated to the ground. Fortunately, the beetle's reactions were not sharp or astute. They were confused by the small paper man's aura, and they all fell to the ground. They gathered in a circle, and because they were small targets, they hindered each other, giving the small paper man time to struggle. Luo Nan retreated all the way, but his gaze never left the small battlefield. He asked, "Is controlling beetles a skill of puppeteer?" Zhang Yingying didn't answer immediately. "Hello." A sharp beep rang out. It was Zhang Yingying smacking down with her palm. The car horn blared. She was rushing over, but Luo Nan's words woke her up. She couldn't control herself and said angrily, "It's Black Beetle. That idiot. His heart is even smaller than a beetle's." Black Beetle? Luo Nan remembered this fellow. It seemed that Black Beetle was one of Zhang Yingying, Bamboo Pole, and the others who played the game together. During the operation to encircle the human-faced arachnid at the Limestone Water Village pub, Black Beetle had swung his hands and left because he was dissatisfied with He Yuan's blunt and outspoken style. Later, Black Beetle vented his anger on Luo Nan because of the matter of the operation score. He directly made a phone call to threaten Luo Nan. Luo Nan really didn't know how Zhang Yingying and the others were able to play with such a character. Right now, Black Beetle had already made his move, and he was going against Luo Nan. His position was very clear. Zhang Yingying went silent for a few seconds after she spoke. Her voice was a bit low. She didn't mention personal matters. She just said, "Don't treat him as a wizard. Pay attention to his close-range attacks. His speed definitely isn't fast, but his transformations are strange. His explosive power is strong, and many of his techniques are dipped in poison." Luo Nan's gaze cut across the mass of beetles. "That's really bad. Alright. Is he in activation class?" "What?" Zhang Yingying didn't react for a time. "Soul strength activation. It's the type that Papercut excels at. Aren't they divided into the control style and the activation style? I think this move of his is quite similar." Zhang Yingying didn't understand what he meant. She could only say, "It's the activation class. But I'm telling you to be careful of his close-range attacks. That's what counters you the most." "I know." Chapter 299. Luo Nan's response really didn't meet Zhang Yingying's expectations. She slapped the steering wheel again. "What the hell are you playing it down for? Haven't you been attending classes all this time? You don't even understand the most basic analysis of victory and defeat. What the hell are you playing for? What in the world did the secretary teach you?" "I've learned a few things. The most basic principle is to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of the enemy and myself. We should play to our strengths and avoid our weaknesses. We should seize the enemy's weakness and attack them to death. Also, you need to have absolute confidence in your own advantages. You absolutely can't lose momentum. That bastard Crag Burst must have fed you some kind of bewitching soup." "Amazing." Luo Nan expressed his admiration very sincerely, but it angered Zhang Yingying to the point where she fell backwards. She really wanted to grab this kid by the ear and lecture him, but this really wasn't the time to talk nonsense. She could only grit her teeth, endure her temper, and speak layer by layer. "Let me tell you. Your advantages are all long range and most of them are on the mental plane. Right now, Black Beetle and the others know everything about you, and their strength is far above yours. Most of your foresight abilities like mental senses have been crippled. You still have a mental attack technique, right? It looks pretty good, but if the opponent is on guard, it's not hard to specially prepare a layer of countermeasures. They've already reached this step. Why would they be afraid of putting in more effort? Luo Nan listened earnestly to Zhang Yingying's analysis, but he declined to comment. In the end, he just hung his head slightly, closed his eyes and breathed out, adjusting his state. When he opened his eyes again, he gave a simple answer. I'll do my best not to meet them face to face. You? Level 125. Shuelei took the initiative to interrupt. He also reminded the two that it was better to act than talk. If they continued to toss and turn, Black Beetle would really come charging over. Got it? Luo Nan responded. From beginning to end, whether it was Shuelei or the two dangerous targets, they were all within the range of his senses. He had a grasp of their respective rhythms of action. He even estimated the specific data. Puppeteer is still leading the Devil Ray to crash into the wall. Black Beetle just exited the elevator. The straight line distance is 55 meters, and he's advancing at a uniform speed. There's no better route. Move forward. The first part was an instruction to Zhang Yingying, and the last 3 words were an order to Tianxi, indicating that this senior sister should rush into the fire escape, and he even gave her a push. But insects. Facing more than 10 ugly beetles piled up together, Tianxi's hair stood on end. She was already very strong-willed to keep her legs from weakening. Easier to deal with than humans. Though Luo Nan said this, he still shook his notebook. The pages split apart and another small paper man jumped out. It wandered around the outside of the beetle pile, helping its companion to disperse the pressure and making the fight even more lively. Tianxi was unable to smile at all when she saw this mini and even comical battle scene. Ever since the start of the crazy security guard, Luo Nan had always been a bewitching core that clutched at her heart. Luo Nan would occasionally glance at her, but it made her heart beat faster. Most of this was due to the effects of fear. But she also remembered what Luo Nantong had said during the call. Under such circumstances, this young man, who was 6 or 7 years younger than her, did not need to hide anything. All his worries and considerations were open and frank. Because of this, the flavor of leniency that came after calm contemplation clearly appeared. Luo Nan didn't wish for her to become a hostage. It wasn't that there was any friendship between the two. It was just that it would bring trouble. But how could a truly emotionless person consider this? Tianxi thought of that person. She had already contacted him countless times after the incident, but he didn't pick up. He completely ignored her. Comparing the two, the callous and deep core behind his exquisite brows could be seen even more clearly. Tianxi found it strange that she was still able to think of these things in this critical situation. Perhaps this was the nature of women? Tianxi laughed self-deprecatingly after a few waves of thoughts churned in her mind. A bit of calmness reappeared from her dazed and chaotic state. She no longer hesitated and doubted pointlessly. She held her breath and carefully walked toward the fire escape ahead of her. The two small paper men gathered the beetles into a ball, clearing the path to the fire escape. Luo Nan and Tianxi took a few steps forward. There was a bit of commotion as they passed the beetle swarm. Tianxi instinctively shuddered, but Luo Nan promptly reminded her, "Don't worry about it." Tianxi looked at the wooden door of the fire escape, which was only 2 steps away. She simply closed her eyes and extended her arm forward. She increased the speed of her feet instead of slowing down. Her palm made contact with the door in the span of a breath. The beetles she had been worried about did not turn around to chase after her. There weren't even 1 or 2 extra beetles in the dusky stairwell. Behind her, Luo Nan pushed open the wooden door of the stairwell, but he didn't enter. He just said to Tianxi, "Keep walking down. Don't worry about the elevator." "Aren't we going together?" Tianxi didn't receive a response from Luo Nan at all. The 15 or 16-year-old youth in front of her had long since turned his face to stare at the situation on the viewing platform. His body leaned against the half-open door, his back slightly bent. He could react at any time. Tianxi was a bit hesitant, but before she could speak, a muffled explosion that shook the heart came from the viewing platform. The muffled sound wave was mixed with cries of alarm and screams. A powerful pillar of water sprayed out from the center of Heavenly Ocean Lake. It rushed all the way to the dome above, sweeping away the gorgeous decorations hanging from it. What was even more shocking was the enormous shadow within the pillar of water. It seemed to make a flip while sticking to the dome before falling down heavily. The pool water violently surged out, washing away many of the surrounding furnishings. The tourists who had surrounded the pool to watch the show, driven by curiosity, were swaying left and right. Some even slid into the water, screaming over and over. The viewing platform was a complete mess. "You're quite strong. Why aren't you leaving yet?" The situation before her eyes, as well as Luo Nan's reminder, made the stupefied Tianxi finally understand the meaningless role she played in this storm. She gritted her teeth, turned around and rushed down the stairs. Her heels clattered against the ground and soon she disappeared without a trace. Puppeteer's methods had caused the viewing platform to be in a state of chaos. Even the beetles in front of the fire escape were in an uproar. It was as if their intelligence had jumped 2 levels in an instant. Most of the beetles flew up, and most of the paper men who were unable to levitate were useless. The highly intelligent beetles broke away from the stupid situation and took advantage of the situation to confirm their target. A dozen or so pairs of compound eyes locked onto Luo Nan, who stood at the entrance to the fire escape. They made slight adjustments and they swarmed over with a buzzing sound. The dense black mass had the style of a horror movie. Luo Nan didn't react in the first instance. His gaze didn't even fall on the bodies of the numerous beetles. Instead, it pierced through the middle and fell on a certain person on the viewing platform. The viewing platform was in a state of chaos due to the magnificent power of the Devil Ray. A crowd of tourists clutched their heads and some fled. There were a few unlucky people who were still struggling in the water. Only the person Luo Nan's gaze was pointing at was dressed in black clothes with the demeanor of an investigator. He wore a gaudy necktie and he had one hand in his pocket. He walked over unhurriedly. He was on a completely different line from the others. Though his pace was calm, his speed was actually extremely fast. It was as if he possessed the length contraction technique. This manifested his outstanding body control and coordination. This was the Black Beetle. Right now, the distance between the two didn't exceed 40 meters. A well-trained ability user could easily discern the target at this distance. Black Beetle rushed at Luo Nan and laughed. 5 colored stripes were engraved on his black teeth, sending a treacherous and sinister power through the air. The speed of the pouncing beetle swarm actually increased by several times. Luo Nan's eyes were half closed. The impending dangerous situation seemed to be covered by a layer of mist. It was not all that clear. But the heart lantern flickered within his brain, reflecting the flying and crawling trajectories of every beetle, and it made predictions. The trajectories crisscrossed and extended, and a layer of incorporeal spider web was laid out. Luo Nan resided in the center of the spider web. The movements of any beetle would be reflected in his mind, and the beetle would crawl on the spider web. The beetle would slow down when it collided with the spider web. It wasn't that the speed of the beetle itself was reduced. Instead, Luo Nan's judgment and consciousness, which was brimming with foresight, caused the level of movement of the beetle to drop by a level. This was a newly learned skill. It was an application of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. At the same time, the mental senses that had fused with his instincts displayed their effects. It was just as Luo Nan had deduced. These fluttering beetles were no different from the small paper men on the ground in a practical sense. They were just mediums for the activation of soul strength. They were carriers of the operational structure of core energy and information. Luo Nan's mental senses illuminated the special configurations of the bodies of each beetle, and they were all reflected one by one. Even though there was a certain difference from the prismatic structure that he had come into contact with the most, Papercut's course had touched upon several basic transformation modes. Therefore, the changes in the core structure of the beetles, including their corresponding rhythms, entered the scope of Luo Nan's clairvoyance. Not a single strand of it was reflected into his mind. Just like that, his mental senses and the illumination of the heart lantern fused together. The spider web, which originally only involved the movement of objects, suddenly merged with many more layers. It was densely packed, layer upon layer of obstacles. The flying and pouncing beetles immediately slowed down by a level. In the domain of reaction, a beat slower was the difference of an entire world. All sorts of changes were synchronized with the control center of Luo Nan's body. Luo Nan responded according to the level of danger. What Luo Nan did was to step sideways to make way for the entrance to the fire escape passageway. He added more force to the automatic rebounding wooden door. This was a simple set of actions, but the most rare thing about them was that they were clearly layered. They weren't messed up at all, and they gave off a feeling of calm and unruffled. This was the full embodiment of body coordination. Half of the effects of cultivating the heart lantern of the eye's orifice over the past 10 days came from this. The door closed heavily. Through the glass of the door, Luonan could see the beetles unable to dodge in time. They collided headfirst into the door, and the crackling sounds of impact were quite crisp. Of course, this wasn't enough. These beetles weren't made of steel, so a normal impact wouldn't be able to injure them. Luonan didn't hope that this attack would succeed. He just used the door to block and then he ran down the stairs. His eyes remained half-closed as he ran, and an incorporeal spider web revolved around him in the void. Above his head, on the familiar mental plane, a vicious and ugly shadow responded to his summons. It appeared by his side, occupying the center of the spider web. Its 6 eyes circulated with brilliance as it absorbed information from all directions. It was none other than the executor who had gotten rid of the 3 crazy security guards. The human-faced arachnid. Chapter 300. The human-faced arachnid in Luonan's hands was not an original type. It was a product of faith developed by the Order of Justice. It was a high-quality imitation version that Luonan had personally created. He had created and used it back at Frost River Reality. It was quite easy to order it around. Unfortunately, it was later destroyed by Wang. Luonan had already forgotten about this matter with the passage of time. He never expected that Fairchild would send someone to deliver a small bottle of raw materials for some unknown reason before he went back to report. It was the metal bottle that Luonan had just thrown on the ground. Of course, the actual application of the human-faced arachnid still needed to mix in some negative emotions as a catalyst. This was not difficult for Luonan. The Wraith sign remained within the blood flame order, making it difficult to summon. This imitation human-faced arachnid could more or less serve as a substitute. The human-faced arachnid had locked onto all the threatening targets with Luonan's mental senses. The reason why it did not make a move was because Luonan had an unreliable feeling through his observations of the life sketches. He was like an experienced sniper who had a premonition of hitting or not hitting the target before pulling the trigger. No matter how bad the premonition was, it was impossible for Luonan to hesitate any longer. With a thought, the human-faced arachnid spat out an incorporeal shockwave. The shockwave passed through the insects that lacked the light of intelligence. It penetrated through all the barriers of the human body and bombarded the soul body of Black Beetle, who was closing in endlessly. A visible tremor appeared on Black Beetle's body as soon as the attack hit. His advancing figure turned slightly sluggish, but that was all. He was just stunned for a moment. His head tilted slightly, and his gaze behind his sunglasses seemed to be able to penetrate the structure of the building to land on Luonan. All right, Zhang Yingying's jinx had come true. His long-range attack really did not have any effect. Speaking of which, this was not a rare thing. Luonan had seen many problems with the siege hammer being ineffective. The human-faced arachnid had wreaked havoc in Xia City for nearly a month. Everyone gradually became aware of the methods it specialized in. Every power revolved around its existence, and the Order of Justice was able to create a faith product. How could they not allow others to create similar mental defenses? Luonan was just stunned. He did not feel depressed or flustered. He had already reached the 141st floor. He hesitated for a moment in the stairwell before walking out of the fire escape passageway. There was no one else on this floor. Inside the building, 99% of the lighting in the public area revolved around the crystal pillar, emitting a dreamy blue light. Luonan's gaze swept over as well. The waves had yet to calm down, but the magnitude of the tremors was decreasing. The Devil Ray's silhouette was nowhere to be seen. Thoughts spun in his mind, but his feet did not stop. He walked straight along the edge of the crystal pillar and quickly walked toward the elevator in the central area. This series of actions was very exhausting, and his breathing was slightly ragged. Just as he reached the middle section of the crystal pillar, 2 loud thumps came from the stairwell behind him. The doors above and below opened one after another in just 2 seconds. Black Beetle, dressed in formal attire, walked out with large strides and let out a sharp whistle that carried a hint of mockery. Luonan turned around just in time to officially meet this person face to face. Black Beetle's appearance didn't bring Luonan any more pleasant surprises. Luonan had long since memorized the details of this person's face clearly through his mental senses. If there was anything different about Ruo Chang, it would probably be the group of beetles flying around him and the 2 paper dolls in his hands. Clearly, it would be very difficult for the 2 paper dolls to be of any use against an ability user like Black Beetle. Black Beetle's feet did not stop. The muscles on his half-covered face trembled, and his lips split open to reveal the pattern of black teeth. Luonan was stunned for a moment before he understood that this was Black Beetle's smile. "Kid, this is our first meeting. I made an appointment with you. You're just a lowly piece of trash who vents his anger by cursing over the phone. Luonan spoke very frankly about his impression of Black Beetle. Black Beetle's face instantly emitted a layer of green energy when his self-introduction was stuck. The pattern on his black teeth moved back and forth, and at the same time he exerted more strength in his fingers. The two paper dolls, who were already on the verge of death, were kneaded back and forth. Soon they were deformed. In the end, they turned into specks of dust that drifted down from between his fingers. Luonan's eyes jumped. A small portion of his 10 days of hard work was gone just like that. Black Beetle noticed where Luonan's gaze was directed at and clapped his hands, knocking off the last of the paper. His eyes behind his sunglasses looked straight at Luonan. Your mouth is a lot sharper, but... Activation class? Didn't they say that there's a problem with your interference power? That your progress has stagnated? Those people who deal with intelligence must be joking around. Luonan didn't say anything. His field of vision covered Black Beetle as well as his own kind that fluttered around him. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice and his mental senses worked in sync. From beginning to end, Luonan analyzed and made predictions. Luonan was still moving backward while his mind was focused on observing. He was facing Black Beetle. He walked backward, but his speed was not slow. What should have been a comical action was done very calmly and beautifully. This was the result of his body's coordination. Luonan definitely wouldn't have been able to do such an action 10 days ago. The wonders of cultivating in the eye's orifice lay in this. It wasn't simply training the eyes. It was a kind of cultivation that encompassed the entire body. According to Gym Master Xiu, this was the beginning of a lifetime of cultivation. It played the role of summarizing the essentials. Luonan's strength, speed, and other hard indicators might not have made much progress over the past 10 days through targeted practice, but all of his abilities related to integration, coordination, and control had clearly increased. Even Black Beetle raised an eyebrow when he saw this scene. You've spent quite a bit of effort in training that robotic woman. Is it because you've licked her to your heart's content? Black Beetle's words were far from the main topic, and they were even more unbearable to the ears. Luonan's eyelids twitched, but his rhythm of observation and retreat was not disrupted. There was only a distance of 10 meters left between him and the edge of the central crystal pillar. He just needed to make a turn there and he would reach the elevator area. Black Beetle twisted his neck. His footsteps seemed slow, but they were actually fast. He strode in close pursuit. What are you running for? Do you still remember what I said? We're going to play slowly. My words must be true. My actions must be resolute. This has always been my motto. No matter how Black Beetle provoked, probed, and mocked him, Luonan made up his mind not to say a word. He knew that the real show had yet to begin. He was happy to see this situation. Shuelei had already broken through the threshold of the 130th floor. There was only a straight line distance of 40 to 50 meters left. However, the difficulty of climbing a building and running were different in the end. Plus, the difference in speed between Luonan and Black Beetle was very clear. Black Beetle took a few steps, and the distance between the two closed to around 30 meters. Luonan blinked and his eyelids drooped down. The scene before his eyes turned a bit fuzzy. Black Beetle's method of advancing looked ordinary, but it was actually full of tricks and changes. Any tiny movement of his shoulders, hips, waist, and spine could be seen as a prelude to some change. Plus, his exuberant aura of life and his self-formed self-logic obscured the details of the life sketches from beginning to end. This brought great trouble to Luonan's analysis and judgment. Luonan's spiderweb became even more complex because of Black Beetle's existence. The consumption of energy increased endlessly. Black Beetle's voice cut in at the right time. It was indescribably sinister. Are you sure you want to continue running? It's true that intelligence is often funny, but there are times when it's useful. I know that you have an outstanding range of mental senses. You have decent mental attack techniques, and you even have the ability to activate your class. But your body and soul are out of balance and your body is reaching its limits. This information isn't wrong, right? Kid, do you feel your fingers go numb, your entire body is burning, and your body is aching? Luonan's eyelids twitched. It wasn't just because of the provocation from Black Beetle's words. It was also because the distance between him and Black Beetle had already entered the threshold of 20 meters. For an ability user, Black Beetle could practically reach Luonan in a single pounce. Black Beetle's words grew all the more unhurried, but the pressure of his movements continued to increase. Your 3 axes are right there. Everyone can see it. Have you ever learned the analysis of the factors that determine victory and defeat? How to calculate the factors that determine victory and defeat, advantages and disadvantages. Actually, you don't need to lick that robotic woman. Uncle Bug, can teach you step by step right now. Oh, your eyes. It's your eyes, right? Your blood vessels are about to burst. At this very moment, Luonan's half-squinted eyes were already glistening with a bright red color. It was just as Black Beetle had said. The blood vessels around his eyes were about to burst. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was used with mental senses. The results were excellent. The trajectory of activity on the material plane. The source of control on the mental plane. The structure of energy and information that interfered with each other. The elements of different planes corresponded and appeared. They affected and interfered with each other. Only by using a united method could everything be displayed in the most comprehensive manner. It was quite helpful in increasing the progress of cultivating in the eye's orifice. This point had already been displayed when he was watching the fish at the party. But Luonan's current cultivation situation could tell that there were hidden dangers in this close relationship. He had felt a sense of crisis for many days, but who would care about these things at this critical juncture? Now, after a round of cultivation, the hidden dangers began to reveal themselves. The most direct and fatal point was the limits of what his body could bear. Black Beetle believed that the time was right. He let out a strange chuckle from his throat. We can keep playing or we can be honest with each other. Why don't you tell me what you saw in the logic world? The question that came out of nowhere made Luonan, who was suffering from the limits of his eyes, feel his heart thump heavily. How many people knew about such a secretive matter? How did the news leak out? Black Beetle grasped an opportunity during Luonan's moment of distraction. How could he expect Luonan to spit it out? Black Beetle had used a series of oppressive words and actions for the sake of obtaining this opportunity to strike. Black Beetle's figure suddenly blurred, and he flashed out from the swarm of beetles surrounding his body. Even Zhang Yingying would praise him for his explosive power. He instantly crossed a distance of nearly 20 meters and clawed at Luonan's face. Black Beetle saw that Luonan was only an arm's length away, but an attack assaulted him on the mental plane. He's exhausted his limited abilities. Black Beetle had long since anticipated Luonan's response. There were only a few methods this kid could use at his current stage, no matter how one looked at it. Black Beetle had long since made his preparations to take on Luonan. He had specially cast a protective spell before taking action. It could withstand at least 5 similar waves of attacks. Black Beetle deliberately stared at Luonan's eyes. He hoped that the fear and despair in this kid's heart would spurt out along with the high-pressure burst of blood. Black Beetle would use the Hexaear to capture this marvelous scene. He would give it to the robotic woman, to all the old friends who flattered and coaxed this kid, but had forgotten about him. In the next moment, the attack on the mental plane touched the protective net formed by Luonan's incantation. Black Beetle saw his wish come true. Blood seeped out from the corner of Luonan's eyes. Black Beetle's lips parted and he welcomed all of this with a smile. Oh, wait a moment. His thoroughly tempered psychic senses sensed something strange. The mental attack came over, but there were no intertwining changes between the attack and the buffer as he had expected. It was empty. But there was a strand of gentle wind. There was even an even more formless beam of light that was cast inside. The wind passed through the gap, illuminating the earth. Chapter 301. Black Beetle could be considered a mentally enhanced ability user. Even though he didn't have much talent in the field of sensing and observation, he had basic common sense. If his own sensing and observation could reach the standard of being transparent and bright, being unobstructed and unobstructed, then it would naturally be excellent. The problem was that when he became the target of sensing and observation, his entire body would be leaking wind and rain. His body and mind would be exposed to the finest details. That would drive him crazy. This was what Black Beetle was feeling right now. From a realistic and understandable level, Luonan's face was between his palms and fingers. He just needed to reach out a little and he would be able to tear the kid's face off. But when that feeling of being unobstructed and unobstructed appeared, he felt as if his body was leaking wind from all sides. An unsuppressible feeling of weakness instantly flooded his entire body. What was going on? It was hard for Black Beetle to figure out this sudden and unforeseen event in a short amount of time. He could only see Luonan's eyes oozing blood through the gaps between his palms and fingers. Luonan's pupils were slightly dilated, unfocused, motionless, and somewhat lifeless. Just as this judgment arose in Black Beetle's mind, Luonan's eyeballs moved. The scattered rays of light faintly converged, and there was a bit of weak light that connected with Black Beetle's line of sight. The glimmering light was like a needle. The penetrating force was like silk. This tiny force of the needle would only cause a bit of pain if it pierced into the thick skin and flesh. But if it pierced into the eyeball, the heart, or the brain, then the result would certainly be different. This was what Black Beetle sensed. The state of being riddled with holes was unable to provide any protection, and the force of the needle was unimpeded. It pierced through and stirred at his weakest and most fatal location. In an instant, the pain was like thunder, exploding in his brain. It then rapidly spread out, unable to be controlled. Black Beetle howled in pain. His eyeballs nearly popped out of his eye sockets. Black and red crisscrossed in his field of vision. His senses were in chaos. Fear flooded his heart instinctively, but his many years of fighting experience still drove him. He summoned his remaining courage and did his utmost to reach out with his hand. He intended to take down the mischievous kid in one fell swoop. He was only a fist's distance away. His fingernails, coated with poison, only grabbed air. Black Beetle's figure continued to charge forward after his attack missed. Only now did he remember that he was in the midst of a high-speed assault. His senses were in error and his nervous system was under stress. It completely messed up the balance of his body. F***CK. His fingers slid diagonally across the hard wall, and then his wrist bones hit the edge of the wall. Next, his head and body collided. Black Beetle's entire body was smashed into the wall of the elevator area. Under the impact of the intense pain, his body's reaction was completely ineffective. He had truly smashed into the wall without the slightest bit of cushioning. Then he slid to the ground, the sunglasses covering his face broken. It was only then that the pain in his head showed signs of subsiding. However, the lingering pain in his fingertips, wrists, head, and torso continued. Compared to the previous wave, the degree of pain was nothing. However, the humiliation of slapping the wall and falling to the ground was like acid splashing into his chest and splashing all over his face. "I'll kill you." Black Beetle let out a roar, and at the same time, he pulled off his already deformed sunglasses and crushed them with his palm. He ignored his chaotic vision and his terrible sense of balance. He supported himself against the wall and struggled to stand up. He waved his arms in a venting manner and controlled the beetles to fly in all directions. But everything he did was useless. He couldn't even touch a hair on Luonan's head. No. He needed to calm down. He needed to calm down. Black Beetle's successive attacks failed, and his emotions of fury and fear interweaved and fluctuated. Finally, there was a trough and Black Beetle seized it. He calmed his mind with all his might, trying to break free from his current terrible state. He leaned against the wall and tried to call out to his temporary partner, "Puppeteer, Puppeteer." F***CK. Before Puppeteer could respond, the piercing feeling came again. But this time it didn't bring about intense pain. Instead, it brought about a sound of unknown origin. No, it was telepathy. Black Beetle smashed his hand against the wall. His heart was filled with resentment, but it was also hard for him to escape from fear. Powerhouses with formidable soul strength and proficient in corresponding techniques could indeed transmit telepathic thoughts to others. But most of the time it was done in a state of peace. In a true battle of life and death, both sides would be mentally tense and highly vigilant. This sort of one-sided telepathic infusion would certainly suffer powerful interference. It was practically impossible to guarantee the completeness and accuracy of the information. But now, the sound that rang in Black Beetle's mind, aside from the initial noise, grew clearer and clearer. Factor analysis. I've learned it before. Luonan's telepathic expression continued the topic they had been discussing before. It was the analysis of the factors of victory and defeat. Black Beetle had undoubtedly brought this up to ridicule Luonan and throw his mind into chaos. And now, Luonan had reversed the topic and stuffed it into Black Beetle's mind bit by bit. My analysis of the factors of victory and superiority is different from yours. What I see you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control you can't compare. What I am at you can't reach. In the end I came to a conclusion. My advantage lies outside of your poor imagination. The rough and tidy sentences and information revealed the jerkiness of being pieced together at the last minute. But the poisonous and spicy ridicule followed Luonan's telepathic thoughts and seeped in layer by layer until it was branded into an imprint. Black Beetle crushed a molar from his teeth. In the next moment, his emotions sputtered out along with the crushed teeth and the glow of blood. F***CK your ancestors. Black Beetle cursed crudely. His boiling energy and blood were unable to drown out the bone-chilling current in Black Beetle's mind. He knew very well that Luonan's telepathic thoughts weren't powerful. They were just strands. But it was hard for Black Beetle to interfere with Luonan's telepathic thoughts no matter what methods he used to defend. This strand of telepathic thoughts could come and go as they pleased. It wantonly painted and engraved marks on his mental plane. It was as if it had entered an uninhabited realm. It was a perfect match with the feeling of being transparent and bright, unobstructed and unobstructed. Black Beetle was unable to suppress his fear and shame. They were like two steel blades. One blade stabbed in and the other pulled out. They took turns stabbing and chopping, shredding his dignity beyond recognition. If Luonan exerted just a bit more force, just a bit more, ding. The sound of the elevator's arrival rang out in his ear. Black Beetle's vision, which had gone haywire due to the intense pain, had recovered somewhat. He was in a trance, and an afterimage flashed past the corner of his eyes. Soon the elevator door closed once more. Luonan didn't make a sound at this time. A series of changes in the details were like a foreshadowing thread. It was abruptly raised, causing Black Beetle's mind to tremble. A certain thought emerged in his mind. If that kid could really finish me off so easily, why would he fight to the point of having his eyes bleed? Why would he spout so much nonsense? Black Beetle didn't have the time to think about what would happen next. He staggered half a step and turned to look at the elevator. But all he saw was the high-speed elevator door closing, and the box had already gone down. Black Beetle's somewhat blurry vision looked all around. He could see the spacious elevator area. He could see the space of the building, but where was Luonan's shadow? Yes. Add a bit more force. There's a problem with that kid's interference ability. It's fine if it's a pure mental attack, but it's a method that directly penetrates and affects the structure of body and soul. Luonan shouldn't be able to exert any force at all. F***ck me. Black Beetle cursed loudly once more. He struck the elevator door heavily, but all he did was smash a dent in the metal baffle. The elevator's floor display had already begun to change. Black Beetle no longer hesitated. He shook his head forcefully, locking onto the fire escape passageway outside the corridor. He rushed over with a few steps, smashed open the door to the stairwell, and jumped down through the narrow gap in the stairs. At the same time he contacted his companion once more. "You're a wire manipulator? If you're not dead, say something." "Yes. That kid is too sneaky. I nearly choked to death in the water. I nearly lost the person in my hands." Puppeteer's curses finally came back. Snake Tongue's protective spell isn't worth a fart. This is his last resort. Black Beetle gritted his teeth and said, "He's out of strength. He's running away. He won't be able to hold on for long. Keep an eye on the elevator. Number 15. "I'm keeping an eye." It stopped. Floor 133. Within the crystal pillar, the Devil Ray ran side by side with the high-speed elevator. Black Beetle wasn't bad either. He borrowed strength from his elbow a few times and his body flipped over. He accurately stopped at the stairwell of the 133rd floor, then he smashed through the door and exited. A white-collar worker just so happened to be waiting in front of elevator number 15 in the elevator. He was the one who had interrupted the elevator's descent. This white-collar worker was startled by Black Beetle, who suddenly rushed out from the fire escape passageway. He turned his head and Black Beetle rushed in front of him like a phantom. Black Beetle extended a hand to press down on the white-collar worker's head, fiercely smashing him against the metal door. The white-collar worker's head immediately bled and he fainted. "Thanks for your help." Black Beetle spat out these words without any sincerity, and his mouth cracked open. His expression grew more and more malevolent, and the aura on his body nearly ignited. The necktie around his neck was like a living snake as it slithered out of the collar of his suit. A certain beetle pattern inexplicably squirmed and protruded on it. It turned into a real beetle and crawled along the necktie. All Black Beetle needed to do was wrap the necktie around Luonan and stuff the venomous bug down Luonan's throat. Who cared if Luonan lived or died? The elevator was controlled by an automatic program. It didn't care about the situation outside at all. The elevator door automatically opened after it reached its destination. Black Beetle's body leaned forward and he was about to make his move. However, the elevator was completely empty. There wasn't a single shadow to be seen. No, there was still a paper man. This palm-sized work of art came from the same school as the other two that Black Beetle had crushed to pieces. It was also fearless and fearless. After pressing the elevator button, it stood upright on the wooden floor of the elevator, assuming a fist stance. "Fuck you." The string of reason in Black Beetle's mind snapped just like that. He simply extended his palm. He ignored the pain in his palm and forcefully crushed the paper man to pieces. He didn't go down. He went back to the viewing platform. The Devil Ray rapidly floated up from the crystal pillar behind Black Beetle. Puppeteer gestured to Black Beetle through the protective glass, indicating for him to go up. This was an extremely normal action, but it was an absolute mockery from Black Beetle's perspective. He still hadn't truly figured out what was going on even now. He just knew that he had been played by Luonan once again. It was just like how Luonan had left an imprint on the mental plane with strands of telepathy. What I see you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control you can't compare. Where I am you can't reach it. Ah. Chapter 302. The viewing platform had been bustling with noise and excitement. The tourists at the scene were in a state of chaos due to the devil ray breaking through the heavenly ocean lake. Some left, some alerted the police, and some joined in the fun. But by the time Luonan climbed onto the viewing platform once more, all sounds on the platform had been cut off. Several dozen people were lying on various parts of the platform, unconscious. There was no need to doubt that Luonan himself was the one who did this. According to the knowledge he had recently learned, clearing the scene before a clash between ability users was a necessary job. A complex and ever-changing scene would cause extra trouble. Of course, there were people who would deliberately create a chaotic situation in order to gain benefits. But Luonan estimated that he might not be able to be ruthless in a critical moment. He might as well do things more straightforwardly. He did not forget that there was a puppeteer on the other side, a puppeteer who could control intelligent life forms from afar. If they were to fight again, any clear-headed personnel could create obstacles for him. Luonan considered himself to be a rookie when it came to fighting. He had to carry out the experience imparted to him by his seniors in a meticulous manner. However, a certain experienced senior had already been completely stunned by the series of movements he had made earlier. How did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it? Zhang Yingying smacked the steering wheel in excitement. The sharp honking sound was deafening even to Luonan's ears. Zhang Yingying had a belly full of words to say during the confrontation between Luonan and Black Beetle. She wanted to curse at Black Beetle, but she also wanted to comfort and remind Luonan. But she knew very well that Luonan was facing an absolutely disadvantageous match. In this life and death juncture, any unforeseen event could lead to a calamity. She could only suppress her worry and force herself to shut her mouth. She even had to worry about Shuele. She didn't want her good intentions to do bad things and disturb Luonan's fight against the enemy. This conflict was more torturous than when she was fighting against a powerful enemy. She could no longer hold it in when the overall situation was decided. She let her belly full of depression explode. Zhang Yingying's pleasant surprise also spurred on Shuele, who was climbing the stairs with great difficulty. He took a few deep breaths and praised, "Nanster, beautifully done. Leave the rest to me. I'll be right there." Luonan strolled along the edge of the viewing platform and laughed, "There's plenty of time. Slow down a bit. Don't get beaten up before you can even stand firm." Phew, don't worry. No problem." Shuele was worried that he would affect Luonan unfavorably just now. He rushed upwards with all his might and he even had to hold his breath. Even though he had already obtained the talisman and connected the inside and the outside, he was still quite tired. Of course Luonan was fine. That was stronger than anything else. It didn't take long for Shuele to adjust his state of mind when he was relaxed. Hey Luo, I'm asking you too." Although Zhang Yingying was complaining, her excitement did not diminish at all. She still blasted the car horn loudly. "Tell me, how did you make the bug so miserable? That guy is an egomaniac, yes, but he is definitely not a fool." Luonan was able to feel the pure joy from the bottom of Zhang Yingying's heart. Black Beetle could be considered an old acquaintance of hers, but Zhang Yingying stood firmly by his side at this moment. Her position was clear and unwavering. Luonan enjoyed this sense of recognition. He thought for a moment and replied seriously, "Correct your mentality, use your advantage and kill them with one strike. Unfortunately, there's still a problem with my interference ability. I can only buy some time." Kill them with one strike. Crag Burst must have taught you this, right? Yes, Luonan admitted. It was strange to say that the classes he took these past few days, whether it was Hiyuan, Bamboo Pole, or Paper Cut, all leaned towards the level of knowledge and technique. They rarely touched upon strategies to deal with the enemy. Cragburst's teaching plan was delayed due to the problem with Luonan's interference ability. Cragburst had a belly full of energy. He contacted Luonan a few times, but every long conversation revolved around actual combat. He imparted some practical experience to Luonan. Cragburst told Luonan that one's mentality was the most important when dealing with an enemy. It didn't matter if one was calm or hot-blooded. One must find the most suitable mentality for oneself. It might not be the most effective or the most thorough, but it was definitely the most stable. It could withstand even more variables. In short, this was an unshakable conviction. It could only be established upon the greatest, the most irreplaceable advantage. To put it in extreme terms, a person who possessed this mentality would think like this: enemies can defeat me, but they will never be able to defeat what I am good at. Luo Nan used this principle to first confirm his own domain of advantage. Hey, you really are stupid and bold. Cragburst and you aren't the same type, okay? Zhang Yingying had a deep understanding of Cragburst's temperament. The more Cragburst thought so, the more she found it hard to believe. Luonan, you're a mage. Can your small body handle playing with a warrior's conviction is my life? Also, your advantages? Mental senses, attacks and so on? Are they useful? Why must it be these things? Luonan felt a bit helpless. Whether it was Zhang Yingying or Black Beetle, they both wholeheartedly attributed Luonan's advantages to the range of his senses and mental attacks. But Luonan never believed this. There were many powerful people in the world. No matter how outstanding Luonan's mental senses were, no matter how fierce the human-faced arachnid siege hammer was, there would certainly be people who were stronger than him in terms of the precision and range of his senses and the intensity of his mental attacks. They might even be much stronger than him. This kind of superficial advantage would sooner or later be directly destroyed by others. His advantages could only be established upon a certain irreplaceable and unique element. You still have cards up your sleeve? Zhang Yingying was a bit skeptical. She felt that she had a better understanding of Luonan. She really couldn't imagine what kind of cards Luonan could play in a short amount of time to play with Black Beetle until he wanted to die. I heard that you're learning under teacher Shuelei. To be able to teach a disciple like Shuelei, you must be an extraordinary person. But it's only been a few days. Hey Shuelei kid, what kind of quick mastery did your master teach you? Shuelei had already caught his breath during the time Luonan and Zhang Yingying were conversing. His breathing became much smoother. He answered, it's the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. But this isn't a quick mastery technique. It's a technique for the eyes. How could it be? Oh my. Zhang Yingying came to a realization at nearly the same time. She didn't have the time to ask Luonan about the profoundness of victory. She spoke in an urgent tone. Black Beetle said that the blood vessels in your eyes exploded. Did you use some sort of forbidden move? How are you now? I'm fine. Luonan used his knuckles to lightly rub the corners of his eyes. The pain in his eyes was still there. The blood was still flowing out, but it was a bit lighter. The more he played it down, the more Zhang Yingying didn't dare to treat it lightly. Luonan smashed his car horn again, but his excitement and joy had faded away. All that was left was annoyance and worry. A kid will always be a kid. His eyes. How can you mess around in this place? Hey, didn't your teacher warn you when he passed on his skills? Shuelei was gloomy. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice is a technique of grinding. It's a gradual method. There's no such thing as a forbidden move. I see you. Shuelei had already pounced to the 140th floor by now. He could see him with his eyes and he was waving at Luonan. Even if Luonan had to climb the remaining 2 floors, he would still be a step ahead of his 2 enemies. It could be said that Luonan was already in an invincible position. Luonan knew that his eyes were a bit damaged from forcefully integrating the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and the domain of mental senses. He had already surpassed his limits. It would be best for him to close his eyes and rest right now. However, he didn't want things to end like this. Luonan held onto the protective glass at the edge of the platform. His gaze naturally cast far away. The sky grew darker and darker. Cloud City Water Village was the main part of the large living area. There was also the area of Acumen College that was even further away. All of them lit up with lights, separating blurry shadows and silhouettes. This scene was somewhat similar to the Star River scene formed from Luonan's mental senses. It was just that the blurry and turbid areas of the Star River scene were mostly interference formed by the power of ability users. The ones before Luonan's eyes were just pure light that couldn't reach them. Before today, Luonan had tried many times to disperse the turbid clouds and dark mist in the Star River scene. He had grasped the various details of the life sketches with greater precision, but he had never been able to achieve it. But just now, Luonan had successfully sent a beam of light into the deepest parts of Black Beetle's body and soul structure when he faced Black Beetle. He had drawn the clearest life sketch, and he had seen through all the weaknesses of Black Beetle's life level. Only then was he able to seize the initiative and play with Black Beetle in the palm of his hand. That beam of light originated from, or at least partially originated from, the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was not the cornerstone of Luonan's beliefs. But this technique imparted to him by Gym Master Xiao undoubtedly played an extremely crucial role. Normally, the heart lantern took into account the functions of storing and guiding water. It carved out the spiritual orifice of the body and activated Luo Nan's soul strength. And in practical use, it hung in the air, reflecting and foreseeing the dynamic trajectory of the material plane. It complemented Luo Nan's mental senses. When viewing an object or drawing a scene, if one angle was not clear, one could often find new discoveries by switching to a different angle. By comparing the two, one could see even more. It was impossible for an independent mental senses and a pure heart lantern of the eye's orifice to achieve the miraculous effect of wind passing through gaps and light illuminating the earth. But when the two were combined, Luo Nan used his mental senses to form a star river scene, and he used the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to sweep away the turbid clouds and dark mist. The mental and material planes coupled information, intersecting and positioning, formed a wisp of gentle wind and a beam of light. It saw through the truth hidden beneath the thick and chaotic surface. Yes, coupling. Borrowing this definition really made one's body and mind happy. Luo Nan closed his eyes and then opened them again. The light of his mental senses could already illuminate the life structure of ability users. Could it be that he was unable to illuminate the purely dusky void of the world? At this very moment, Luo Nan used a new and refined clairvoyance method to observe the void. He gazed at the silhouette of the jungle at the edge of the world. The increasingly dusky color of the sky could not obstruct him. The information on the material plane and the mental plane corresponded and connected once more. They rubbed against each other, bursting forth with a marvelous spiritual light. The light was cast into the reservoir of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Then it passed through the pupil, passed through the void, passed through the chaotic silhouette of the jungle, and hung above the target. The surface of the lake was like a small mirror amidst the withered leaves of the jungle. On one side was gear. The exquisite building carried a bit of a rusty color. The long river that pierced through the forest flowed through its other corner. It made a turn at the end of one's field of view, extending into the distance. It was as if it had been washed away by time for many years. When time moved, all things moved. Chapter 303. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Shui Lei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Shui Lei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sister Ying, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Shui Lei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiao's usual demeanor. Shui Lei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Shui Lei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Shui Lei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered a state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and it is constantly changing. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Millions of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. Was the scene of Luo Nan talking to himself? Luo Nan was talking to Zhang Yingying. It was like a dream. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luonan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The Heaven and Earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luonan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Xuelei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luonan's words, but he had never seen Luonan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luonan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the Heaven and Earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luonan hadn't grasped the rhythm of Heaven and Earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luonan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Xuelei finally found the key words in Luonan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luonan's gaze. Under the dusky sky, Xuelei gazed into the distance with his eyesight. He was able to make out the rough outline of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Master, you can see gear from here? Xuelei was skeptical of Luonan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight was far too heavy in Luonan's current state. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luonan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could look at the incorporeal law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luonan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Xuelei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luonan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a thing or two about the energy emanating from Luonan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luonan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was there enough momentum? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap and he would be crippled. All right. Find the gym master. The first person Xuelei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luonan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Xuelei rushed over. Master, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first? Luonan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. I might be in a bit of a situation. A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them, and the difference in volume between the two sides is too large, it will be very troublesome. Xuelei was stupefied. Zhang Yingying spoke hatefully from the other side. Don't worry about him. He's incurable. Luonan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the state of his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the beginning of Luonan's physical body cultivation. It was already in contact with the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. Powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of his brain, shaking off its body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luo Nan had a premonition in his heart, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through the tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luo Nan curled up his body and crouched down. He extended his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shui Lei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Yet Luo Nan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It was not blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. This is nothing. I know what's going on. Luo Nan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though Luo Nan couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Shui Lei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." Luo Nan had just finished speaking when the sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake. It was mixed with the oppressive sound of an explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Shui Lei turned around, protecting Luo Nan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luo Nan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luo Nan's painful crouch. Only a few seconds passed, and two elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over, ignoring Shui Lei. His gaze only fell on Luo Nan's arched back. Shui Lei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luo Nan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luo Nan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luo Nan, but he also had to defend against two attacks at the same time. Alright, there was still the other elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Luo Nan was having a headache. Shui Lei was stupefied for a moment. It took him great effort to correct the direction of his perception, and he matched the identity of the person. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tian Si. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to slightly open, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shui Lei gnashed his teeth as he watched. You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society. No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tian Si. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something? Tian Si's lips trembled. Shui Lei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tian Si managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. I've been taking the stairs all this time. Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luo Nan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. Chapter 304. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Xue Lei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Xue Lei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sister Ying, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Xue Lei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiu's usual demeanor. Xue Lei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Xue Lei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Xue Lei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered the state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and changes. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Tens of thousands of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. The scene of her talking to herself was simply a replica of that night at Frost River reality. Unfriendly thoughts and concepts assaulted her face. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luo Nan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luo Nan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Xue Lei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words, but he had never seen Luo Nan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luo Nan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luo Nan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luo Nan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Xue Lei finally found the key words in Luo Nan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luo Nan's gaze. He gazed into the distance with his eyesight under the dusky sky. He was able to make out the rough outlines of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Nanster, you can see gear from here? Xue Lei was skeptical of the level of Luo Nan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight in Luo Nan's current state was far too heavy. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luo Nan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could see the formless law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luonan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Shuelei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luonan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a bit of the energy emanating from Luonan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luonan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was the aftereffect enough? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap and he would be crippled. All right. Find the gym master. The first person Shuelei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luonan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Shuelei rushed over. "Master, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first?" Luonan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. "I might be in a bit of a situation. A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them and the difference in volume between the two is too large, then it will be very troublesome." Shuelei was stupefied. Zhang Yingying spoke hatefully from the other side. "Don't worry about him. He's incurable." Luonan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the situation with his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the contact between Luonan's body cultivation and the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. A powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of Luonan's brain, shaking off a body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luonan had a premonition in his mind, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through his tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luonan curled up his body and crouched down. He reached out his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shuelei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Luonan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It wasn't blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. "This is nothing. I know what's going on." Luonan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though his eyes couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Shuelei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." The sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake just as Luonan finished speaking. It was mixed with a muffled explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Shuelei turned around, protecting Luonan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luonan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luonan's painful crouching state. Only a few seconds passed, and 2 elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over. He ignored Shuelei, only landing on Luonan's arched back. Shuelei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luonan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luonan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luonan, but he also had to defend against attacks from 2 sides at the same time. Alright, there was still an elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Shuelei was having a headache. Shuelei was stupefied for a moment, but he managed to correct the direction of his understanding with great difficulty. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tianxi. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to open slightly, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shuelei gnashed his teeth as he watched. You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society. No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tianxi. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something? Tianxi's lips trembled. Shuelei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tianxi managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. I've been taking the stairs all this time. Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luonan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. It's my fault. Chapter 305. On the entire viewing platform, only Luonan was able to understand the feeling of grievance in Tianxi's words. She really did follow Luonan's instructions. She walked down the stairs of the fire escape. No matter how tired she was, she didn't ask for help from the elevator. She stayed far away from the central crystal pillar, but she was still unable to escape Puppeteer's demonic claws. She was controlled and taken hostage. Of course, the grievance was secondary. Tianxi felt more fear. She was an intelligent person. She guessed that the current momentum of victory and defeat between the 2 sides from the choices made by Puppeteer and Black Beetle should have been reversed. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in her being a hostage. Her value to the kidnappers was to threaten Luonan. But what value did she have to Luonan? Why would he give up the great situation of reversing the hopeless situation and take the risk to rescue her? This situation nearly made Tianxi fall into despair. However, she could only place her hopes on Luonan. She was all the more afraid that Luonan would turn a blind eye because of the inconvenience. So her expression of grievance came from her heart, but it was more or less a deliberate expression. She only hoped that she could arouse a bit of Luonan's understanding and sympathy, so that she could redeem a bit more of a chance at survival. Luonan's raised arm gave Tianxi a bit of comfort. However, her reaction couldn't satisfy others. Puppeteer sighed in the air above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He slid his body to the middle of the pool's edge along the frame structure above the pool. He crooked his finger at Tianxi. Tianxi's feet involuntarily leaned towards the swimming pool. When she got closer, her left thumb pressed against her lower jaw. She violently turned her face around and lifted it up slightly, forcing her to look up at the master who currently controlled her life. Come. Let's work together. Puppeteer crouched down. He even lowered a hand to indicate to Tianxi. His diving goggles covered half of his face. His mouth cracked open, revealing his snow-white teeth in a smile. The shape of Puppeteer's face wasn't bad. He had the flavor of a sunny man, but Tianxi was completely drowned in fear under this smile. She could only watch helplessly. She was like a marionette. Her entire body was under the control of someone else. She extended a hand upward, connecting it with Puppeteer's palm. Then she was pulled up. Under the rough movements, she felt that her arm was about to be dislocated. She couldn't help but let out a painful groan, but the sound was quickly squeezed back. Puppeteer used his own hand in place of Tianxi's. He forcefully grabbed her neck and carefully sized her up face to face. He was very satisfied with Tianxi's complexion, which had turned from deathly pale to flushed from fear and suffocation. He took a deep breath in her hair and savored the delicate fragrance of her hair. At the same time he laughed. Beauty, whether you're willing or not, we're one. Tianxi was really about to suffocate. Right now, she had regained some control over her body, but she could only helplessly move Puppeteer's steel-like arm. She struggled with her legs. Apart from that, she couldn't do anything else. Puppeteer lifted Tianxi's slender neck. His footsteps were light as he returned to his original position. During this process, Tianxi struggled with her hands and feet at first, but she quickly ran out of strength. Her body went limp and her eyes were filled with despair. At this time, Puppeteer's gaze had already turned to Luo Nan. Even though Luo Nan was still half squatting at the edge of the viewing platform, not even turning his body around, Puppeteer's eyes behind his diving goggles were firmly fixed on Luo Nan. He wouldn't relax in the slightest. As for Black Beetle, he stood in front of Heavenly Ocean Lake with a cold expression. He blocked the only path to rescue Tianxi. Even so, Puppeteer still felt that it wasn't too safe. He continued, I must admit that we underestimated your abilities, Mr. Luo Nan. We underestimated your transcendent mental attack. Our plans were ruined. So, we learned our lesson and decided to calmly chat and discuss things. We'll solve the problem. For the sake of ensuring this, I specifically made a safety wire. Thank you for your cooperation, Beauty. Right now, I have a bit of a connection with her on the mental plane. Any experience I receive will be fairly shared with her. In terms of endurance, I have some self-confidence that I can surpass this delicate beauty. An attack that's enough to defeat me has a high chance of defeating the other first. So, right now, I can only hope that the relationship between the two of you is sufficiently close. Having said this, Puppeteer turned to look at Tianxi. Speaking of which, Beauty, have you two slept together yet? No. That's better if you haven't. Perhaps Mr. Luo Nan will feel that it's a pity. Puppeteer obviously hoped to receive a response from Luo Nan after his excellent performance, but Shuelei only sent him a gaze of loathing. The main character, Luo Nan, still maintained his original posture. He had even retracted his apologetic arm. It was unknown whether it was due to the effects of his injuries, or whether it was due to his disdain for his defeated subordinate. Puppeteer sighed. He had no choice but to urge Luo Nan, Mr. Luo Nan, it's best if we don't waste any more time. Even if the police are idiots, they should come back to their senses by now. Everyone should resolve this as soon as possible and go home. That would be excellent. Luo Nan still didn't respond. TSK. Are all youngsters this cold these days? Then allow me to warm things up first. I'll play a little trick with my temporary beauty partner. A smile returned to Puppeteer's face. He raised his arm horizontally, placing Tianxi above the water's surface. After breaking through the tempered glass at the bottom of the pool, the Heavenly Ocean Lake will probably be the deepest swimming pool in the world. It's 800 meters deep. I have a feeling that the beauty partner next to me has pretty good swimming skills. She's enough to deal with those cute little kids, middle-aged friends and older friends. Why don't we give it a try first? Tianxi had already given up on struggling, but as Puppeteer's words entered her ears, the strength in his hand mercilessly increased. He forcefully squeezed out what little potential she had, forcing her to struggle with her hands and feet. She was unable to speak, and her originally beautiful pupils rolled upwards. Excellent. Beautiful, you have quite the camera feel. Puppeteer laughed even more happily. His hand casually swayed a few times, causing Tianxi to struggle even more painfully. Let us officially begin. The first act of the hero saving the beauty action. The water of the Heavenly Ocean Lake splashed as soon as Puppeteer's words fell. A terrifying shadow broke through the water's surface, leaping 6 to 7 meters into the air. It brushed past the soles of Tianxi's feet, and its long tail lashed out. It took the opportunity to slice off one of Tianxi's high heels, and the other fell down amidst her struggle. Shuzhao. My other partner is quite protective of the fairer sex. However, I'll tell it that the next step is your delicate little feet. Do you want them to be symmetrical? The ice-cold water vapor and the scorching killing intent assaulted her at the same time. Tianxi could no longer hold herself back and tears poured down her face. She cried noiselessly just like that, and the barrier of her willpower completely collapsed. At the edge of the viewing platform, Luo Nan's eyes were still closed, but his eyelids trembled twice. He exerted strength with great difficulty to support himself against the protective glass. He slowly stood up, turned around and faced the two fiends head-on, but he still didn't open his mouth. Black Beetle turned his head and locked gazes with Puppeteer when he saw Luonan's situation. Both of them thought of the word backlash in their minds. Black Beetle then chuckled, "You're also trash as a director. Are we still in the era of silent films? You're just doing voiceovers. Where's the dubbing?" Puppeteer didn't mind. He gave a light praise, "Good idea." Puppeteer loosened his grip a bit as soon as he finished speaking, allowing Tianxi's sobs to pass through her airway with great difficulty. They squeezed out strands by strands. Tianxi's oppressive breath of despair pierced through the sound of the heavenly ocean lake's water. It entered Shui Lei's ears intermittently, causing his teeth to creak. However, Zhang Yingying had given him orders time and time again that he absolutely could not act impulsively. This was to prevent Black Beetle and Puppeteer from taking advantage of a loophole. Shui Lei had no other choice but to grit his teeth. Luonan, on the other hand, maintained a calm expression even though his eyes were closed and blood was flowing. He could even be said to be callous. The situation was still deadlocked. Puppeteer had a big headache when faced with this master who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. In the end, time stood on the opposing side in Xia City. Puppeteer could only confront Luonan while using his own channels to contact him and ask for advice. A few seconds later he snapped his fingers. "How about this? Let's change methods. Beauty, don't cry. Let me ask you something. This callous boy in front of us, were you on a date just now? Now he's crying his eyes blind. What? Can you tell me?" Tianxi's willpower had collapsed. She thought she was dead. How could she respond? Puppeteer shook his head. "How about this? For the sake of fairness, I'll tell you a secret first. Our other partner." As he spoke, the mutant devil ray broke through the surface of the water once more. It leaped into the air, but it didn't fall according to the laws of physics. Instead, it resisted gravity and floated beneath the dome, circling around Tianxi's body. "Our partner can actually fly. This way he can use his large mouth to meticulously grind away the skin and flesh of your little foot bit by bit. He can slowly chomp down. It's better for digestion. So, let's work together a bit more?" As he spoke, the devil ray's long tail of electricity had already wrapped around Tianxi's calf. It hooked onto her stockings a bit, coiled up and gradually tightened. Tianxi felt the sensation of a snake coiling around her calf. There was even the numbing power of electricity. Her entire body trembled, and the gurgling sound of her throat mixed with her hoarse sobs. She just wanted to faint. But under Puppeteer's control, this became an extravagant hope. "Pay attention to the time," Puppeteer reminded her one last time. Tianxi's thoughts were in complete chaos. Fear ruled over everything. It was like the claws of a demon probing into her brain and rummaging. Whatever was inside, it would be pulled out. Because of Gear. Gear is senior sister Qingwen's masterpiece. You can see it here. Gear? That's the society building we went to first, right? Puppeteer tilted his head and continued to ask, "Senior sister Qingwen? Who's that?" "It's junior brother Luonan's mother. I have a bit of an impression, but it doesn't seem to be of much use." Puppeteer spoke, but he glanced in Luonan's direction from the corner of his eye. Black Beetle stared in that direction with fixed eyes. He suddenly thought of something and contacted someone through his wristband. "Hello, you guys are still in Gear, right? Alright, it's that society building. Hurry up and prove it." "Idiot, isn't it easy to break something, set it on fire or something?" As he spoke, he raised his arm horizontally and turned on the speaker function. He turned the volume to the maximum. A short second later, a loud crashing sound accompanied by crashing noises could be heard. There was no sign of it stopping. Chapter 306. Black Beetle knew that Luonan's current injuries were mostly due to the backlash of the secret technique. It had little to do with their methods. But this didn't affect Black Beetle's good mood. He climbed back onto the viewing platform and his taut face relaxed for the first time. He hissed and laughed at his wristband. "Snake tongue. Beautiful snake tongue. I love you to death. Keep going. Keep going. Smash something that looks more memorable." A hoarse male voice came through the wristband's external speaker. "Don't try to get close to Snake Tongue if you don't have anything to do. I was the one who did it. Next, destroy the building and smash the outer wall. How about it?" I love you too." Black Beetle was overly excited. His mouth was extremely greasy, and he smacked Luonan with the side of his face. He didn't conceal his delight in the slightest. "Oh, I'm sorry. I know this move is a bit childish, but it's effective. Especially when I look at your face. This is the expression I want. Luonan didn't say anything, but Shuelei couldn't hold back from cursing. You lowly scum. If you have the guts, let's fight face to face. I'll smash your head flat with 3 punches. Black Beetle's sinister gaze swiveled over. He grinned, revealing his deep red tongue and white teeth. A deep darkness seeped through. That's quite unfortunate. I'm not interested right now. Right now, I just feel that it's a pity. Soon, Black Beetle's gaze switched, and it pierced Luonan's face like a poisonous dart. It's a pity that the Hexier malfunctioned today. Otherwise, we could do a live broadcast and see Tank's ability to demolish houses. Oh, I forgot. The wristband works too. Cloud City Water Village's network is quite stable. Luonan let out a light breath. He reached out to press down on Shuelei, who was about to explode. He leaned back against the protective glass and spoke hoarsely, "Stop messing around. What do you guys want to know?" "Oh, you finally know how to respond." Black Beetle saw Luonan admit defeat. How could he not know that success was at hand? He felt a cool and refreshing air pour down from the top of his head. He felt refreshed to the core. But even so, his miserable experience on the 141st floor was like a volcano crater. It caused a disturbance in his heart. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Black Beetle didn't make a sound. He just slowly smoothed out the tie in his hand and put it back on his neck. He flipped it left and right, gesturing it back and forth. During this time, the muffled sound of someone smashing the wall could be heard from the loudspeaker on the wristband. Even though Luonan was holding him down, Shuelei was still hopping mad. "You son of a bitch. You came here specifically to destroy people." Black Beetle laughed involuntarily. "Don't be anxious. This is just the beginning. If I don't smash it for an hour or 2, I won't be able to see any effect." What? Before he even finished speaking, Black Beetle's mouth suddenly couldn't close. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't close them. During this process, his face turned red, green, and purple. It was as if an invisible hand of a demon had covered his mouth and nose, isolating him from the outside world. A feeling of suffocation engulfed his entire body. After that, he felt the pain of needles piercing into his brain. His vision went black and red again, and his nerves went haywire. His entire body was stiff and trembling. Luonan's voice was like a cool breeze that brushed past her ear. "You actually didn't make a safety wire? How unfortunate." Black Beetle struggled in pain. His eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. He strove to mobilize his extraordinary power, but for some reason the mental attack he suffered this time was 10 times more violent than last time. The aftermath of the attack didn't fade. He exerted force with great difficulty, but all he could do was touch his gaudy tie. He grabbed it with force, finding it hard to make any further movements. Puppeteer exploded with a shout from above Heavenly Ocean Lake. "Mr. Luonan, everyone, don't act excessively. We can talk this out." Puppeteer saw Luonan turn his head to look at him just as he shouted. Puppeteer's blood-red eyes made contact with Luonan's heart go slightly cold. Luonan whispered, "What do you mean by excessively? Me or him?" Puppeteer adjusted his mood and forced a smile. "There's no need for us to be so intense. This is just a routine investigation. Look, I haven't harmed a single hair on this beauty from beginning to end. I was just playing a joke. I was just trying to scare her, right? Then I smashed my mother's masterpiece. That's..." Luonan lowered his head slightly. His body movements were full of exhaustion. It was as if he was organizing his words. "Black Beetle doesn't have the attitude to communicate with me normally. Actually, even now, I don't know what you guys want to do. There's only fighting and killing, humiliation and damage." Puppeteer cursed in his mind. He cursed Luonan and he cursed Black Beetle. Black Beetle had seen the series of conflicts from start to finish. Luonan's claim that he didn't know was certainly nonsense. However, it was an indisputable fact that Black Beetle prioritized revenge over obtaining information. In fact, Puppeteer himself rather admired Black Beetle's behavior. On this point, the two of them had a common language. When all was said and done, they didn't take Luonan seriously in the beginning. They just wanted to deal with a half-crippled, half-grown child once they finished their defenses. Black Beetle's actions were excessively unbridled. Evil karma begets evil karma. In the end, Black Beetle had to swallow the karma. Puppeteer was stronger than Black Beetle in one aspect. He was more nimble. Puppeteer knew that he needed to change his methods. He discussed things with the people behind him and he revealed a sunny smile. "Mr. Luonan, we are both members of the society. I believe that we can carry out a calm and peaceful exchange. I've already told them to stop over at Gear. If the exchange goes smoothly, not only will they withdraw at first notice, but they will also send the best engineering team to restore all the damage done. They will also pay $1 million in compensation. Are you satisfied with this sincerity? Luonan didn't respond, but he didn't refuse. Puppeteer felt that the change in trajectory was a success. His smile grew more and more brilliant. Mr. Luonan, both sides are expressing sincerity. Look at Black Beetle. The corner of Luonan's lips twitched. Is he affecting our exchange? Puppeteer was a bit startled, but the smile on his face remained the same. No, he's not affected. Oh. It was true that Black Beetle's entire body was stiff, but his mind was still clear. His eyes and ears were still useful. Puppeteer's words all fell into his ears. This nearly caused his heart to explode. He exerted all the strength in his body to twist his body, but he lost his sense of balance under the mental attack. He didn't twist his body. Instead, he fell down, his face smashing heavily into the ground. Since Puppeteer had made up his mind, he didn't even spare a glance in that direction. He just muttered to himself, wondering if the safety wire in his hand was truly effective. Luonan spoke at this time. Speak. What do you guys want to know? Puppeteer composed himself and calculated the time. He smiled and tossed out a series of words. On the night of October 7th, the Society's Xia City branch clashed with the Order of Justice at Frost River Reality on Fudong Main Street in the city center. Branch President Ouyang Qin intervened in the later stages of the conflict. He erected the so-called logic world. From that point on, many things are unclear. This is disadvantageous to headquarters in restoring the truth of the matter and upholding justice for everyone. Luonan also laughed. You guys should go ask President Ouyang. 1 for personal gain, 2 for public gain. One-sided testimonies are very hard to accept. We learned through special channels that Mr. Luonan, by chance, entered the logic world through an out-of-body state. You are an extremely important witness. So we want to ask. What special channels? Luonan was very curious. Puppeteer's face finally turned cold. Mr. Luonan, no matter how you say it, this is an investigation by headquarters. I hope that everyone can correct their attitudes. Don't create any side issues and don't want to see consequences to appear. Luonan nodded. He no longer interrupted. Puppeteer stared at Luonan's face and spoke in a deep voice. We want to know what you saw in the logic world. Narrow down the scope a bit. What did Ouyang Qin do? What did An Weng of the Order of Justice do? Why did he do this? Then he disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? There are many things that I don't know. Tell us everything you know. This will take a long time. Mr. Luonan. Puppeteer took a deep breath. His fingers exerted more pressure on Tianxi's slender neck, using her painful struggle to express his mood. Since we all know that this will take a long time, why not be a bit more nimble? Actually, Shuelei was itching to give it a try at this time, but he was stopped once more. Luonan leaned against the protective glass and muttered to himself for a moment. He said, if you want to know An Weng's actions back then, you must understand what the logic world created by President Ouyang is. Puppeteer raised his voice. Mr. Luo, our time is precious. Before Puppeteer's voice could fall, an order came from behind. Let him continue. This information is very valuable. Puppeteer's face twitched and he instantly switched to a smile. So, please be concise and comprehensive. Luonan ignored the change in Puppeteer's expression. He just minded his own business and spoke several seconds later. If you view the mental plane as countless layers of fluttering cloth. Puppeteer cursed inwardly, F***CK. He had no choice but to interrupt Luonan once more. The world recognizes that the mental plane is divided into 3 zones, 1 region and 1 domain. Where did your countless layers come from? Luonan did not speak. He raised his eyelids and his blood-red eyes faced Puppeteer. Perhaps he could not see clearly, but he maintained this posture until Puppeteer felt that he was an incurable idiot. Puppeteer's eyelids twitched. Mr. Luo? Luonan had kept his eyes open for too long. His eyes burned with pain, so he simply closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. 5 or 6 seconds passed before he said, through the formatting theory created by my grandfather, I observe the mental world. It's just like that. Do you need me to explain what formatting theory is? The relationship between the self, society, and heaven and earth format should be relatively easy for ability users to understand. I remember that President Ouyang did some elaborations on self-logic and secular logic. You guys aren't so stubborn that you don't know anything about this, right? 4 or 5 new concepts popped up one after another, causing Puppeteer to be a bit dazed. Luckily, he quickly received instructions from the rear. He corrected the direction of the topic. We can postpone the theory lesson. Right now, you can directly describe it. First, what do you know about the logic world? Second, what is the result of N1 being in the logic world? Then I won't use a curtain to describe it. Luo Nan raised his head slightly and adopted a posture of reminiscence. The logic world. Now that I think about it, it's probably a part of the heaven and earth format that was forcefully dismantled and pieced together into a temporary production line. In terms of composition, it is a part of the heaven and earth format. In terms of rules, the self format is the yardstick. The heaven and earth format is temporarily included in the scope of the self format, using a small gear to drive a large gear. The coupling structure here is truly exquisite. Format your sister. Gear your mother. Puppeteer felt that his ability to understand had been insulted. He wanted to immediately snap Tianxi's neck, but Luo Nan's voice drifted over just as this thought passed through his mind. Chapter 307. The mutant devil ray circled back and forth in the heavenly ocean lake. Its developed wing-like pectoral fins stirred up wave after wave in the lake. It looked a bit impatient, just like Puppeteer's current mood. The smile on his face was still there, but most of his muscles were stiff. At this time, a low and cold voice entered his ears from behind, but he did not know where it came from. Could it be that you really hope to dig out something right now and obtain a great merit? There really is a problem with your comprehension ability. Puppeteer's face turned hot, and he wanted to curse in his heart. But just as he thought this, the voice from behind seemed to see through his internal organs. Instead of cursing silently, it's better to think of a way to continue attracting the opponent's attention. Move your mouth. Puppeteer secretly clenched his teeth, but he had just been reprimanded. There was still support behind it, so his heart was able to twist a bit. He slightly moved the muscles on his face and did his best to reply calmly. Mr. Luo Nan can continue. As he spoke, Puppeteer confirmed the time once more. He also confirmed that the recording was on. He made up his mind. No matter what Luo Nan said, he would just let Luo Nan speak. He would just ignore it and go back to analyze it in detail. Formatting theory, right? What grandfather and grandmother? When I get back, I'll make you reveal the color of your entire family's underwear. Luo Nan seemed to truly believe Puppeteer's words. His eyes remained closed and he spoke expressionlessly. Then I'll continue speaking. I just finished talking about the logic world. Next, I can describe N1's situation. Finish my ass. Puppeteer's gaze looked down behind the enormous diving goggles. He did his utmost to filter out all information related to Luo Nan, but even so, Luo Nan's voice still penetrated through. It was simply like the whispers of a devil, stirring up Puppeteer's emotions layer by layer. I'm not clear on what N1 is doing. I can only say what I observe and understand. You must know that the levels of the heaven and earth format are extremely rich. The interference between the material plane and the mental plane can form countless kinds of order frames. Oh, you definitely don't understand this part. Fuck. The devil ray echoed Puppeteer's emotions. Within the heavenly ocean lake, the devil ray forcefully flapped its pectoral fins and wings once more, creating a rumbling explosion. Water sprayed everywhere, drenching most of Tianxi's skirt and stockings. However, she was already completely unresponsive. Puppeteer wanted to kill. Right now, he was incomparably convinced that Luo Nan had done this on purpose. That kid had seized on the fact that Luo Nan didn't understand, to torment and ridicule him back and forth. Alright, did Luo Nan really think that Luo Nan was a Buddha who wouldn't get angry? Luo Nan stopped talking, but he didn't even open his eyes. He calmly waited for the noise created by the devil ray to pass. You want to blow the fuse? Maybe the kid was waiting for you to do that. At that time, my useless protection spell won't be able to protect you. Luo Nan didn't open his mouth, but the rear darkly warned Puppeteer. In the end, Puppeteer concluded with an ice-cold order. Don't let me be distracted by you again. After being reprimanded again, even Puppeteer's anger turned into ashes. He suddenly came to a realization. What was Luo Nan's goal in this round of taunting and stabbing? If what the rear said was really to provoke him to cut off the safety wire himself, then their intentions were really deep. On the surface, Puppeteer had said that he and Tianxi shared mental attacks, but Luo Nan could presumably see that the connection between the two was actually unequal after these few rounds. Tianxi was being tormented to the point of hovering between life and death, while Puppeteer was quite relaxed. In reality, Even if Luonan's mental attack came, Puppeteer had the confidence to block the first wave. He relied on Tianxi in his hands. She was a good conductor. She was enough to minimize the damage to himself. And if he made a mistake and cut off his own path of retreat, what would happen to him? Just look at Black Beetle in front of him. He was a living example. Many complex thoughts flashed through Puppeteer's mind, but a thin layer of cold sweat covered his back. He immediately loosened his fingers and even sent a bit of vital energy into Tianxi to avoid giving her more pressure. He also helped her smooth out her blood and energy. He was afraid that his emotions would be too extreme and he would really strangle the safety wire on the spot, pushing the situation into an unsalvageable situation. He still had to explain to Luonan, sorry? Mutants aren't easy to control. I didn't interrupt your train of thought, did I? Luonan was silent for a moment. His voice became a bit deeper. I coined the term order frame. It's normal that you don't understand it. So ask yourself, do you need further explanation? Puppeteer stared at Luonan's face. The more he looked, the more he felt that he had dodged a calamity. Otherwise, what would he explain? Would he return the favor with a plum? He was just trying to cover it up. Youngsters these days had ruthless hearts. Puppeteer's mind relaxed and tightened. From the looks of it, Luonan still harbored thoughts of direct conflict with them. Perhaps the society's reinforcements were about to arrive. Puppeteer needed to be a bit more careful and make more preparations. Speaking of which, the rear wasn't ready yet? In any case, Puppeteer adjusted his mentality. He accepted his fate. He wouldn't get pregnant just by listening to it. What was there to be afraid of? He put on his signature sunny smile. Of course it's best if you can explain. I want it. Why wouldn't I want it? Luonan felt extremely exhausted after going through so many things. He let out a breath and gasped for a bit before continuing, I came up with this term. The source was the inspiration provided by Child. Child? Puppeteer adjusted his mentality. His utilitarian heart gradually faded, and his mind became much more nimble. He raised an eyebrow upon hearing Luonan's words. The years of truth? Luonan didn't respond to this topic. He followed the prescribed order and continued to speak. Child once said that observation is order. According to my understanding, it refers to using one's own logic to comb through the myriad things of the world that one observes, establishing laws of order that are easy for one to understand and utilize. And our existence itself is the product of a certain natural order. Here, the order of the subjective and the objective, the order of the mental and the material, interferes. It is like two gears biting together. If the coupling structure is relatively stable and the operation is effective, then it is a gear set with relatively independent functions. It is an order frame. An order frame can be large or small. Speaking small, it can be our own cultivation method and it can even be subdivided. Speaking large, the myriad things of the world can be included within it. Connections can also occur between the various order frames. The eyes behind the diving goggles blinked. Perhaps it was because his mind had calmed down, or perhaps it was because he had a clear reference, but Puppeteer suddenly felt that Luonan's words were quite reasonable if he cast aside the descriptions of gears and formats and used terms that were easier for Puppeteer to understand. The order frame was like the self-logic of an ability user. Oh, this was Ouyang Chen's concept. Puppeteer preferred the more fanciful term of domain. On the side of headquarters, there were powerful people who proposed that the material world should be regularized. They wanted to use the perspective of pure supernatural power to reinterpret the entire universe. At the very least, they needed to leave a place for the mental plane. Of course, the 50 years of rapid development of the inner world was far too immature when compared to the profound and complex physical system that humanity had developed over 1,000 years. This argument could only be used as a form of motion. It could only be listened to for the time being. Were kids these days considering such complex issues? Or was formatting theory really that valuable? He would have to dig deeper when he got back. They're really chatting? Zhang Yingying was dizzy from listening through the three-way communications. She could not help but shout, "Don't get carried away. This fellow puppeteer is very sinister. Hey, I think I heard someone say snake tongue just now. It's snake tongue, right?" Luonan acted as if he did not hear her. He continued to talk loudly. It was Shuelei who confirmed in a low voice, "It's snake tongue without a doubt. There's also a tank. He's over at gear right now. He's threatening Nanster. That sinister woman has quite the reputation. She's a true curse mage with an inheritance. Holy crap. I just checked. She's not in the investigation team at all. She snuck over." Zhang Yingying slapped the steering wheel again. Right now the investigation team's leader and deputy leader are both under control. But the other side may not know about this variable, Snake Tongue. We must notify the people coming over to provide support. Otherwise we'll just be sending ourselves to our deaths. Shui Lei's heart tightened a bit. Is this person very powerful? She's been an architect-level character for a long time, but she's a bit like Nanster. Her body isn't too good, so she lives in seclusion and rarely shows herself. But she specializes in curses, and she also understands torture and assassination. She's extremely sinister. When it comes to harming people, she can leave her soul body and travel 1,000 kilometers in a single night to another city. Oh my god. Zhang Yingying stopped slapping the steering wheel and instead slapped her thigh. Be careful of this person. You must be careful. You guys are talking a bunch of nonsense over there, but if she's in an out-of-body state she can go from Gear to Ocean Sky Cloud City in a single thought. Shui Lei's scalp went numb when he heard this. He immediately opened his mouth to warn Luonan, Nanster. The words just left his mouth when Luonan's back borrowed a bit of strength from the protective glass. He stood up straight and spoke softly, "You might not be able to understand it if you just say it with your mouth. This way I can do a demonstration." Puppeteer keenly sensed the minute changes on Luonan's side, especially Shui Lei. It was clear that Shui Lei was communicating with someone and knew some information. Puppeteer's heart tightened a bit, and his body quickly entered a battle-ready state. The smile on his face didn't change. Demonstration? I think what you said just now was quite good. I already understand the concept of the order frame. It's actually a domain, a small universe, a law of heaven and earth. Am I right? Wrong. Luonan responded in a straightforward and efficient manner. The core I just spoke of isn't actually in the order frame. Instead it lies in coupling. The former has a myriad of names, but its source lies in the myriad of connections between each other. My mother classified these connections as coupling. I think it's quite appropriate. In the end, Puppeteer's blood-red eyes opened into a slit. Deep darkness and stillness were mixed within the blood-red color. His gaze fell upon the fallen figure in front of the heavenly ocean lake. The one who's playing dead is a very typical example. Many black beetles who had not moved at all felt their bodies jolt. Their scalps went numb. They felt Shui Lei who was in front of them and Puppeteer who was behind them. Their gazes were like knives as they sliced over. Chapter 308. Black Beetle really was playing dead. Though Luonan's second mental attack was much stronger than the first, there was still an end to it. After enduring the most painful period, Black Beetle regained his soul and regained his ability to move. However, Black Beetle could no longer find his position in the current situation. He saw it clearly. This group of people from headquarters were all unreliable cold-blooded people. After he made a move against Luonan, he severed his friendship with the Xia City branch. He did a pirate-style jump and finally smashed into the sea. Right now Black Beetle hated Luonan to the core. He hated Puppeteer to the core and his teeth itched. Presumably both sides felt the same way about him. Black Beetle didn't know how to deal with this awkward situation. He could only lie on the ground and play dead. He thought about how to adapt to the situation. It would be best if the sandpiper and the clam could fight and the fisherman could profit from it. But if not, he would retreat unscathed. Who would have thought that Luonan would talk about those inexplicable concepts right when the two sides were about to completely forget about him? Then Luonan picked him up in passing. What happened next? The demonstration caused a chill to run down Black Beetle's back. Luonan didn't have any good intentions. Should Black Beetle continue to play dead? Or should he rise up in revolt? Black Beetle was so conflicted that he wanted to hit the ground. Luonan didn't care about Black Beetle's reaction at all. His voice didn't even pause. From what I can see, Black Beetle's gear set, order frame has a total of 4 gears inside and out. In the middle is a large gear formed from the structure of body and soul. Practically all power must circulate through it. Every ability user must possess such a central hub. This was relatively simple, and Puppeteer had no trouble understanding it. However, Puppeteer's attention was a bit off. His ice-cold gaze swept back and forth over Black Beetle's motionless body. Needless to say, Puppeteer believed 80% of Black Beetle's story of Luonan playing dead. Puppeteer had let Black Beetle down earlier, but since he had offended Black Beetle, there was no point in thinking too much about it. Puppeteer was more concerned about how to deal with this variable. Black Beetle has an outer gear aside from the central gear. That is, the 27 beetles scattered on the viewing platform and the 6 beetles in his necktie. The precise number Luonan spoke drew Puppeteer's attention back. Luonan gave a rough sense. The numbers scattered on the platform should be about the same. However, that gaudy necktie was Black Beetle's core tool. It was always hidden tightly. How did Luonan confirm it? After hesitating for a moment, Puppeteer decided not to take it seriously. Luonan continued to speak. The 33 beetles appear to be scattered, but they are actually intimately connected through the activation of soul strength. They can form another gear structure at any time. This method should be more flexible, and it wouldn't matter if he threw a few of them. However, the material was relatively brittle, and if he really used it, it would probably only have enough power for one attack. Also, his necktie looks pretty good. It should be polished with gears often. What I mean is that he often uses interference force to communicate with his chi. It can be used as a medium for activation, and it's not that fragile, so it should be more practical. It's insect explosion and poison sting. The former is a corrosive poisonous mist, while the latter is a killing move of the flexible sword style. They are Black Beetle's two secret skills. Zhang Yingying's voice passed through the wristband to supplement Luonan's words. It allowed the stupefied Shuelei to hear it a bit more clearly. At the same time, Shuelei could tell that Zhang Yingying's voice was a bit shaky at the end. What the hell? What the hell? Black Beetle was unable to hear Puppeteer's thoughts. He was also unable to hear Zhang Yingying's explanation, but he didn't need to. Even though he was unfamiliar with descriptions like gear and order frame, what Luonan said was something that had fused into his blood. It was the foundation of his foothold in this world. Now that Luonan had pointed them out one by one, it would be strange if he felt comfortable. Black Beetle was instinctively unwilling to believe it. No, this isn't logical. I'll think about it. My information is confidential, but the society is a place with openings on all sides. Zhang Yingying and that mechanical woman know my ins and outs. This little bastard probably knew the result long ago, so he used that so-called order frame of his to wrap things up and mess with my mind? Or maybe this kid doesn't care if I'm awake or not. He just wants to use me to divert Puppeteer's attention? The more Black Beetle thought, the more suspicious he became. The more he thought, the angrier he became. He was conflicted in his mind for quite a while, but he still clenched his teeth and made a decision. He would deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanged. In any case, his face was stuck to the ground. He might as well just leave his face on the ground. He would just treat Luonan's words as farts and he wouldn't move. At this time, Puppeteer took the initiative to ask Luonan, "Didn't you say there are 4 gears? There are only 2. The third gear is a bit different from the first 2. It is independent from Black Beetle's body and soul structure. It's called coupling, but it's more like a parasitic. Parasitism can also be considered a type of coupling. I think it counts." Luonan's words were unclear, but they nailed Black Beetle to the ground the instant they entered his ears. Impossible. Black Beetle felt as if someone had used an ice blade to cut open the back of his neck. A bone-piercing chill and pain spread from the center of his spine to the 2 ends. In the blink of an eye, even his toes were covered in ice. Others might be confused, but Black Beetle's mind was crystal clear. What Luonan was talking about was his life bug. The source of his ability was a mutant beetle. He had accidentally swallowed it into his stomach in his early years, and it fused with his extraordinary power to build a unique ability structure. He had nurtured it for many years, and the mutant demon bug had already been deeply rooted within his body. It had become the most important foundation of his ability. This was the #1 secret of his life. He had always kept it rotten in his stomach, never mentioning it to anyone. How could Luonan possibly know? Unless this kid had a pair of clairvoyant eyes that could see through his internal organs and see through all of his secrets. It was also at this time that Black Beetle recalled the feeling of being transparent and bright, unobstructed and unobstructed. The wind blew through the gaps and the light shone on the earth. Was there a pair of incorporeal eyes behind this unfathomable sense of transparency? Staring at him all the time, not leaving a single hair behind? Black Beetle's heart beat wildly with this thought. He slapped the ground across his chest, and the aura on his body fluctuated. Everyone present had keen senses. Naturally, it was impossible to hide it from them. This kid is really playing dead. Shuelei had a straightforward temperament. He shouted out, "Go F** King die." Even though Black Beetle's face was pressed against the ice-cold ground, it was as if a fire had been ignited at this moment. An explosion rang in Black Beetle's mind, and a buzzing noise similar to tinnitus poured into his mind. This noise was mixed with emotions of fear and fury. It was like a rising flame, incinerating his plan of playing dead into ashes. He suddenly bent his elbows and straightened his body. Whether it was his body or his consciousness, His first reaction was to charge forward and tear apart the demon that had exposed the greatest secret of his life. Shuelei had been moving forward by half a body's length from beginning to end. Now he took a diagonal step, blocking Luo Nan behind his broad shoulders. Speed wasn't Black Beetle's strong suit, but strange shifting was engraved in his bones. Even though his mind was a mess right now, Black Beetle still instinctively chose to move when faced with Shuelei's rock-solid stance. With a few slight movements, Black Beetle shifted Shuelei's center of gravity, and he saw the face behind Shuelei. A small portion of Luo Nan's face was revealed. He only had one eye and only a slit could be seen in his eye socket. The deep red color absorbed all the light and it was pitch black. It transformed into an incorporeal pressure that pressed against Black Beetle's chest. There's still the fourth gear. I just put it on not too long ago. Before Puppeteer could finish speaking, a gale rose on the half-open viewing platform, and Shuelei and Black Beetle collided together. Explosions rang out one after another, and Luo Nan's hoarse and weak voice drifted away. It was far away and Puppeteer might not be able to hear it clearly unless he focused his mind. Puppeteer wasn't sure if Luo Nan was talking to him or not, but it sounded very much like Luo Nan's tone. The fourth gear doesn't belong to him at all. It comes from the outside. At first it served a defensive function. It was like a lampshade shielding against mental attacks. But right now the coupling method has changed. It has changed from a lampshade to a lasso. Black Beetle grunted and retreated. Shuelei's close combat ability was at least a level higher than his own. Black Beetle had no chance of victory in a direct confrontation. Plus, Luo Nan's voice lingered by his ear without dispersing. Luo Nan's words pierced his mind over and over again, making it hard for Black Beetle to continue fighting. Black Beetle shifted his body greatly to the side. He no longer exposed his back to Puppeteer. Instead, he formed a long and narrow triangle before stopping. He gasped for breath slightly. His gaze first stared at Luo Nan, then turned to Puppeteer. Then, his gaze flitted across the various shadows of the platform. His mind wavered like his gaze. As for Luo Nan and Puppeteer, the gazes cast over from both sides seemed to be quite subtle. Intense unease and fear materialized, rolling within Black Beetle's chest and abdomen. Snake tongue. Give me a reply. What responded to him was a hissing sound. It was quiet and dark, like the hissing of a viper in the darkness. Scales slithered. Black Beetle was overwhelmed with shock when he wanted to move. A terrifying feeling of numbness rose from his abdomen all the way up, drowning his internal organs and drowning his throat. The power of the numbness continued to rise. A buzzing sound pierced into his brain. Black Beetle's eyeballs bulged and veins crawled over the whites of his eyes. His eyes were filled with fear and despair. This was his life bug. He had always carefully kept it within his abdomen, keeping it separate from his internal organs. But now the demon bug had gone out of control. The mutant demon bug's terrifying instincts awoke under the influence of the strange hissing sound. It bit its way through Black Beetle's intestines, stomach, chest, throat, and all the way to the brain. Black Beetle wanted to struggle, but his opponent didn't give him any chance. As the feeling of numbness and the buzzing sound of the bug entered his brain, his consciousness darkened. His spiritual light was lost forever. The violent wind masked Luo Nan's long and drawn-out sigh. Luo Nan didn't want to save Black Beetle. He just wanted to give Black Beetle a warning and trip up his opponent's secret plan. However, he never thought that Black Beetle's methods would be so ruthless. Black Beetle had directly awakened the mutant bug parasitizing within Black Beetle's abdomen. The roles of host and guest were reversed. Black Beetle died rigidly in the wind. He was thoroughly dead. Right now, his body only existed as the exoskeleton of the mutant demon bug. He was tossed about at will. Shuelei wasn't too sure. He sized up Black Beetle with vigilance and asked Luo Nan, "Is he?" Luo Nan nodded. Dead. Before Shuelei could finish speaking, Black Beetle opened his mouth. Yasakasha. Black Beetle wiggled his lips, tongue, and throat. The range was very clear, but his voice was vague and hoarse. When he used too much strength, a green spike even protruded from his mouth. It even swayed left and right. Chapter 309. No matter how fast I rushed, I was still half an hour late. I was enlightened in anger to change the title. This is a contradiction between the details of the outline. Everyone please don't mind. Shuelei was extraordinarily courageous and insightful when he saw the situation that went against normal aesthetics. His human instincts made his scalp go numb. He couldn't help but shiver. What kind of monster is this? Luo Nan didn't answer. On the other hand, Black Beetle turned his body a bit to face the two. He continued to speak from his throat. Bashasha. What Aka means is sorry. Black Beetle enunciated these words perfectly. If one were to close one's eyes, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference between before and after. Even if one were to open one's eyes, it would still be the same person as long as one could ignore the uncomfortable details. Right now, Black Beetle's behavior was one of incomprehensible restraint and politeness. His hands were a bit stiff as they protected his lower abdomen. They were slightly crossed and his head was slightly lowered. He really did look like he was apologizing. Acting ahead of time has caused many links to be missed. The transformation still requires a process. Please forgive me. If it wasn't for the unnatural twitching of this fellow's facial muscles, if it wasn't for the fact that insect-like limbs would pop out from his mouth, nose, and even ears from time to time, Black Beetle's current behavior was simply like that of a well-trained etiquette officer. Comparing the front and back, comparing the inside and the outside, gave off a strange ghastly feeling that made one's heart go cold. Combined with Zhang Yingying's previous warning, Shuelei reacted to what was going on. He adjusted his position once more, shielding Luo Nan behind his broad shoulders. He faced the thing that was neither man nor insect directly and growled. Snake tongue? Before the transformation is complete, I really do need to deal with the two of you. However, personally speaking, I hope to engage in a few beneficial exchanges with Lord Luo during this short period of time. The one before him was Black Beetle on the outside, a mutated demon insect on the inside, and a bizarre existence whose will belong to Snake Tongue. It spoke in a seemingly courteous and frank manner. At the same time, its stiff body leaned forward slightly. It was as if it had adapted to the pronunciation. It quickly became smooth and made a deep bow. It had an extremely respectful appearance. Lord Luo's theory is very enlightening. It has broken through a barrier that has perplexed me for many years. I have learned much. Shuelei stood between the two. For a moment he felt that he was quite unnecessary. This was indeed the case. Snake Tongue borrowed Black Beetle's mouth to speak and move. It was just a formality. Her telepathic thoughts treated Shuelei as nothing. She only stared at Luo Nan. I believe that Lord Luo should have his own set of gears as well, one that is also carrying out a wondrous coupling effect to see through the laws of life. But it doesn't work very well, does it? As he spoke, Black Beetle's face twitched in a way that didn't match his tone at all. A split second later, his two eyeballs silently shattered. Blood splashed out, and the dark green chelicerae protruded from his eye sockets before retracting. Amidst this scene that made one's eyelids jump crazily, Black Beetle's face revealed a smile. The gaps between his pitch-black teeth were filled with an inhuman aura of death. Gears are extraordinary, but the human body is frail. The more complex and mysterious the coupling, the greater the pressure. How much longer can Lord Luo hold on? Luo Nan stood behind Shuelei. He felt a bit uncomfortable on his face. The blood flowing from his eyes was about to dry up. He used the cuffs of his white coat to wipe his face twice. This small action affected the nerves on his face, bringing him a stinging pain. It was as if a small knife was scraping against his face. He exhaled, doing his best to maintain a calm expression on his face. He spoke softly, "Is it because of this that you simply killed Black Beetle to reduce the complexity of the coupling and make it easier to control?" Lord Luo's words are more apparent once the meaning is clear. Snake Tongue responded through Black Beetle's body, which was riddled with holes. Right now, she had already caught up to Luo Nan's logic of thought. She could come and go as she pleased. Allow me to express my disagreement. Lord Luo's assertion that Black Beetle is dead is a bit rash. I have only made some changes to his mode of existence. According to Lord Luo's words, I have transformed the central gear into something else. Black Beetle's body twitched violently just as Snake Tongue finished speaking. His entire body shrunk into a ball and he fell to his knees on the ground. His entire body trembled. Shuelei subconsciously crossed his arms, pushing Luo Nan back a bit. He was afraid that Black Beetle would stir up some other demonic moth. And at the same time Luo Nan moved, a faint and fine incantation came from Black Beetle. The incantation mingled with the cold wind on the viewing platform and blew in all directions. Shuelei didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the wind on the platform had weakened. It was a thread too late. A series of soft explosions rang out from every region of the viewing platform. Shuelei's ears trembled slightly. His gaze spun around, accurately capturing every point of explosion. He saw light green mist rise and fill the air in those places. 27 of them. They should be bugs controlled by Black Beetle. They all exploded. It's a bug explosion. Be careful of the nerve poison inside. It's very corrosive if it's stimulated through special techniques. Zhang Yingying had already learned of Snake Tongue's arrival from her wristband. She grew more and more restless, but she had to feign calmness for the sake of not letting these two rookies panic. She endured with great difficulty. Shuelei's eyelids twitched wildly. It doesn't look like much, but they're coming from all directions. What's the meaning of this? Zhang Yingying was stupefied. Coming together? Luo Nan interjected. Snake Tongue is currently controlling the airflow on the platform. Leister, can you still climb the building while carrying me? No problem. Even if there was, Shuelei would still have to overcome it. Then we'll forget it. We're a step too late. Luo Nan's voice grew hoarser. His body was indeed under enormous pressure. He grew weaker and weaker, but his mind grew brighter and brighter. It was just as Snake Tongue guessed. The gears formed a coupling relationship under Luo Nan's roughly formed order frame. Perhaps it wasn't smooth, but it was enough to give birth to a spiritual light that illuminated the inside and the outside. There was nothing it couldn't reach, so much so that it possessed astonishing foresight. Unfortunately, Luo Nan's lack of experience in fighting enemies meant that his reaction was a bit slower when facing Snake Tongue, a spellcaster with treacherous and unpredictable thoughts. The frigid airflow on the platform had already become tame and docile under the control of the fine incantation. It spun, sending the light green poisonous mist that was scattered all around. The mist pressed down on Luo Nan and Shuelei's positions in layer upon layer. Looking at it from afar, it was as if fine muslin was coiled up. It floated in the air and didn't disperse. It converged into a curtain and surrounded the surroundings. It didn't even let the area outside the platform go. It sealed off Luo Nan and Shuelei's paths of retreat. Shuelei looked around and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He had the mind to use the wind from his fists to break apart this layer of poisonous mist curtain, but he thought about Snake Tongue's marvelous wind control spell technique. He was afraid to shoot at the rat for fear of breaking the vases. He might not be afraid of this poisonous mist with his mastery of the talisman realm, but what about Luo Nan? It was impossible for Luo Nan's body to withstand this torment with his bones. Snake Tongue's move was played down, but it poked at their weak spot. What should they do now? Wait for the poison to evaporate? Don't look at this half-open platform. Snake Tongue's wind control technique made this place no different from a completely sealed room to them. This wasn't the end. Shuelei's eyelids twitched again. He saw a black beetle who had just fallen to the ground twitching, slowly crawl up from the ground. Black Beetle's body was still a bit shaky, and his two eyes, which had already turned into bloody cavities, endlessly gushed out blood. His face was pierced by a few sharp insect limbs, but he still revealed a polite smile. The transformation is complete. I've made a fool of myself in front of Lord Luo. The masked smile on Black Beetle's face shattered with a bang before he finished speaking. What replaced it was hatred and insanity that warped to the extreme. The two bloody cavities on his face turned toward Luo Nan's direction. He gnashed his teeth and said, "You little bastard who hides under a woman's skirt. Go die." The sudden change in style made Shuelei's scalp explode. His eyes went blurry and Black Beetle roared as he charged over. He directly charged through the light green poison screen and punched out head-on. The relatively stable poison screen was smashed into a chaotic whirlpool, and Shuelei's nose was filled with a fishy smell. Shuelei thought of Luo Nan behind him and flew into a sudden rage. His majestic body actually swelled to size in midair amidst his fierce shout. His body was like a giant, and his heavy fist smashed down. An explosive bang rang out, and Black Beetle flew back at a speed even faster than when he charged. The bones of his right arm had been forcefully smashed into 3 pieces by Shuelei, and they were pressed down by the heavy fist. They twisted and collapsed back into his forehead, causing his skull to cave in. But the instant Black Beetle was blasted back, Black Beetle's left hand secretly tore off his tie. He took advantage of the situation and swung it across Shuelei's chest noiselessly. It was as if Black Beetle's clothes had been cut by a sharp blade. They split open in an instant, and a white mark appeared on Black Beetle's chest. The mark quickly turned red and congealed with blood. It was on the verge of breaking, and it even penetrated with a hint of darkness. Shuelei gritted his teeth without making a sound. He just stared unwaveringly at Black Beetle. Under normal circumstances, Black Beetle's brain would have burst open in exchange for Shuelei's attack. Shuelei would have won long ago. But the fellow in front of him had a warped face and cracked skull. What came out wasn't brain. Instead, it was half the body of an ugly demon insect. Black Beetle even grinned and laughed. Oh, the feeling of ventilation isn't bad. Why didn't I discover this before? Shui Lei's mind went cold. He actually didn't know if Black Beetle was standing on the side of him or the demon insect. What in the world was this fellow? Before Shui Lei could finish his thoughts, Black Beetle's expression changed again. His lips and teeth opened and closed, conveying Snake Tongue's will. Lord Luo, does this count as Black Beetle's death? Behind Shui Lei, Luonan's voice was low and hoarse, but it was still stable. It's just an incomplete soul. You've kneaded it into a wrath-like monster. That's one way of putting it. Snake Tongue didn't deny it. The scale of life and death is already fuzzy for us. You say death, I say life. Each has their own standards. But what I want to ask is this. If Lord Luo were to become like this, how would you feel at that time? Of course, I definitely won't treat him as crudely as I treated Black Beetle. I will use the most meticulous techniques to slowly knead him. I will make Lord Luo's soul my most precious collection. Under Snake Tongue's control, Black Beetle bowed over once more. The dark green beetle replaced the position of the brain within the cracked skull. It squirmed slightly. When the time comes, I will reconstruct a more suitable body for Lord Luo to place your dazzling soul. If we're lucky enough, we can often exchange and discuss ideas to perfect the order frame and other geniuses. This is my plan. Chapter 310. Luonan didn't respond to Snake Tongue's polite and respectful attitude through Black Beetle. He leaned against the protective glass. His eyelids drooped and his breathing was rapid. He gave people the feeling that he was growing weaker. The four sides of the poison veil were truly fatal to a person with a terrible constitution like him. If he spoke a few more words under these circumstances, Snake Tongue wouldn't even need to increase her strength. He would collapse on his own. Lord Luo? Snake Tongue still used a civilized and polite greeting. Aside from the irreparable flaw in her host's appearance, there was nothing to nitpick about. Shui Lei couldn't stand this hypocrisy. He opened his mouth to ridicule. No wonder your nickname has the word tongue in it. You really talk a lot of nonsense. I'm truly sorry. I really can't think of anything else to do aside from talking. Snake Tongue urged Black Beetle forward 2 steps. This made Shui Lei feel as if he was facing a great enemy. Black Beetle really wasn't much right now, but if the surrounding poison veil rolled a few more times, Luonan would most likely collapse. And this was the reason why Snake Tongue was neither fast nor slow. Shui Lei gritted his teeth. Snake Tongue continued to speak. I could have ended this situation much faster. But I'm ashamed that my cultivation isn't up to par. I can't guarantee that your wisdom and aura will be preserved completely. What kind of information you can leave behind will mostly depend on luck. This will have an extremely high chance of erasing Lord Luo's charismatic theory. It would be too much of a pity. Snake Tongue. Puppeteer couldn't stand it any longer above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He looked at his watch once more to confirm the time. Even if the Xia City Police and Cloud City Water Village's security department were all trash, they would certainly have reacted by now. What's more, the Xia City branch was behind them. Now that they had finally gained the upper hand, they had to hurry up and put Luonan down and snatch him into their hands. Do your own thing well. Snake Tongue's voice directly rang in his ear. It was a warning that was neither light nor heavy. And at this time Luonan, who had been silent all this time, spoke. You guys were asking about Wang. Isn't that off topic? Idiot, you're still in the mood to chat? Shut up. Hold your breath. Zhang Yingying was already driving at high speed in the metropolis. Her driving points for this year had already been deducted completely, and she still had to spend most of her effort. She was worried about this troublesome thing and she really wanted to pull the steering wheel off. Master, listen to sistering. Don't talk. Shui Lei also wanted to stop Luonan from talking, but Luonan patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Black Beetle continued to act as a mouthpiece, helping Snake Tongue and Luonan realize the conversation. From my standpoint, Wang's whereabouts and the like can't move me as much as Lord Luo's theory. Thank you very much. Luonan continued to speak in a weak voice. So what you're saying is that we'll continue to discuss this topic until I'm knocked out by the poisonous mist? Or until you finish constructing your fortifications? There was suddenly no sound on the viewing platform. Fortifications? Regardless of whether it was Shui Lei, Zhang Yingying, or even Puppeteer who was on the other side, they once again encountered a barrier to understanding. They were stunned for a time. Snake Tongue probably felt the same way. Only after 5 whole seconds had passed did she speak through Black Beetle, but her tone was much heavier than before. Lord Luo, have you been observing me this entire time? I've been guessing at you. Luonan's breathing gradually turned hurried. The minute amounts of poison that had seeped into his body were affecting him more and more clearly, but he still spoke. I was thinking that, with your abilities, if you had acted together with Black Beetle and the others and caught me by surprise, I probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. But you didn't come. You just made a lampshade. It's better than nothing. It doesn't make sense for a great killing machine to be ordered around by a logistics personnel. So I guessed. Of course, I had the support of a certain person's intelligence. I thought that you must have come here in an out-of-body state. Admittedly, it's convenient, but it's also weak, especially when facing someone like me who specializes in sensing and mental attacks. Your personality should be more cautious and protective of your body. You haven't launched your final attack yet. Perhaps you're worried that you'll use too much strength and be detected by me. If I really do catch you, your defensive abilities will be inferior to Black Beetle and the others. Snake Tongue was silent for a few seconds before she said, "Has Lord Luo discovered my position? I'm not too sure. So I'll listen to you. Let's chat some more?" Snake Tongue didn't make a sound. She seemed to be muttering to herself as she pondered over her next move. Shuelei, Zhang Yingying, and Puppeteer were speechless for a time. So it turned out that there was another confrontation going on the viewing platform, and they were completely unaware of it. Even though Luonan had made it clear, they were still like this. The gazes of Shuelei and Puppeteer were all focused on Luonan's body, but they were unable to see any clues. Luonan's complexion was still not too good. The protective glass behind him was curved, making it uncomfortable for him to lean against it. He laboriously adjusted his leaning posture, and when he finally felt a bit more comfortable, he extended 2 fingers and gestured. A second passed and Snake Tongue spoke through Black Beetle. "Lord Luo's meaning is..." "To answer your question just now." Luonan seemed to be in the mood to talk. "You just asked me about the issue of my order frame. According to Black Beetle's evaluation standards, it contains 2 gears. One is large and one is small." Luonan spoke simply, but the inner meaning was much more complicated. Of the 2 gears, the large one was the format pyramid. It was represented by the external neuron and the soul strength stored within it. Xiao Xinyu called it an external technique during his lecture. He said that it was like an enormous iceberg, its law strict. The small one was the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Luonan had made some progress in his 10 days of cultivation. It was an extension of his skeletal system, but it was not mature enough. It could only be considered a sampan floating outside the iceberg. The large and small gears had some sort of coupling relationship from the very beginning. Luonan channeled his soul strength from the format pyramid, causing the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to rapidly grow and strengthen. This was one of the reasons. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice and the format pyramid shared information. This was the second reason. This was especially true for the latter. At the very beginning, Luonan's clairvoyance on both Black Beetle and Puppeteer's life sketches were obscured by a dense fog, forming interference. After the new coupling relationship took shape, it was like wind passing through a gap. Light illuminated the earth. Most of the dark clouds and turbid mist were swept away from the two's life sketches, and even the entire Star River diagram. Layer upon layer was transparent, marvelous beyond compare. It was impossible for Luonan to speak of these details. Rather than saying that he was discussing with Snake Tongue, it would be better to say that he was using the process of speaking to further sort out his thoughts, which were gradually taking shape. Therefore he didn't care whether or not Snake Tongue responded. He continued speaking, minding his own business. "My problem lies in the fact that the 2 gears aren't on the same order of magnitude. They are too close to each other. They lack a reasonable structure. Even if a coupling relationship is formed, wear and tear is hard to avoid." He turned his face in the direction of the heavenly ocean lake and laughed. He had clearly exposed his shortcomings, but this rare expression made Puppeteer's heart tremble with fear. A special structure is necessary to form a linkage between gears of enormous difference in mass. An intermediate link is necessary. It's like the devil ray. It's rampaging through the crystal pillar, killing countless people. Getting close to it is a dead end. But as long as it's a bit further away, many small fish and shrimps can rely on the food scraps left behind by the devil ray to live quite comfortably. Puppeteer subconsciously looked down at his feet. He only came to a realization when he was halfway there. This topic had gone way too far. Even Snake Tongue was a bit unable to keep up with Luonan's rhythm. In the end, she could only let out an unclear sigh. "Lord Luo, when you use your unique way of thinking, it truly makes one revere you. However, we are still mortals in essence. It's not a good thing to be too far away from the mortal plane." Black Beetle suddenly took a step forward as he spoke. Shuelei didn't know how far the situation had developed, but his duty to protect Luonan would not change. He immediately bowed slightly, entering a fighting state. Luonan paused the communication, that only he understood. His bloodshot eyes pointed at Black Beetle's ugly and deformed face, but in the end he just swept a glance over it. Then he lowered his eyelids. "Didn't you want to discuss? I'm very worried about Lord Luo's current situation." Snake Tongue's concern was just like Black Beetle's face. All that was left was a shriveled and empty shell. As she spoke, the light green poison screen silently closed up toward the center. The range was very small and it was extremely cautious. Black Beetle also pushed forward. His speed wasn't fast, but his center of gravity shifted erratically at any time. It was 70 to 80% of Black Beetle's peak state. Shuelei had to pay attention to the poison screen and smoke, and he also had to lock onto Black Beetle. He also had to worry about Luonan's state. His mind was divided. It was truly exhausting. Shuelei heard the clear sound of Luonan's breathing behind him at this time. He was startled. He turned his head to look, ignoring Black Beetle's movements in front of him. Black Beetle seemed to be stunned as well. He actually didn't take the opportunity to launch an attack. Luonan didn't care about what the others were thinking. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He didn't avoid the toxic environment surrounded by the poison screen and smoke at all. He subconsciously moved his lower jaw during this process, waving away the numbness on his face. The main component of Black Beetle's bug explosion poison should be a polypeptide neurotoxin. The possibility of it being ISTX-3 is a bit higher. It is transmitted through the bloodstream and acts directly on ion channels. It possesses an extremely powerful paralyzing effect. However, Black Beetle has done a great deal of modulation in order to increase the efficiency of the effect. This has increased the possibility of respiratory tract infection, but it has also reduced the toxicity. Luonan didn't even raise his eyes when he spoke to this point. He laughed. "Does this count as being on the secular level? Miss Snake Tongue, we agreed to discuss this. It's not good for you to leave midway." Snake Tongue found it hard to conceal her astonishment. "Lord Luo has done research on neurotoxins? I've taken a lot of medicine. I can resist it a bit." That being said, Luonan would have been in big trouble today if he didn't have the foundation of the container format and the opening of the eye's orifice to stimulate the functions of the human body as a foundation. He definitely wouldn't be like he was right now, breathing out poisonous gas, scaring people and playing around. Luonan leaned against the protective glass and switched to a more comfortable position. He wouldn't tell Snake Tongue that half of his body was covered in numbness. He would tumble if he took a single step. However, his nervous system was in an abnormal excited state due to the stimulation of the neurotoxin. This was what he needed the most right now. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.